Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the Next Gen Racing Front-Wheel Drive Fridays Clio Cup Series, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 3 of 8 with a return to the United Kingdom. We've travelled afar from the United States and all the way over to the Cheshire countryside for none other than the Oulton Park circuit. Located near the village of Little Budworth, this circuit is in a picturesque location, but hidden within that location is a circuit which brings together some of the ultimate motorsport in history from the United Kingdom. Whether it be British Touring Car, Great British Formula 3, alternatively British GT, this circuit has played host to a wide variety of series that have brought in crowds from domestic and international audiences. And well, when you've got a narrow road surface, plenty of blind apex corners, and also multiple undulations and elevation changes overlap, you've got a perfect setup for what is going to be one of the ultimate racing tracks, arguably on the international stage. Of course, while the ultimate changes around here, a narrow road surface where overtaking requires you to be bold on the brakes and confident in your approach to each and every corner and each and every straight. You've got to be ready to go side by side into some of the tightest sections of circuit history, and will you be able to come out on top? That's the big challenge that we pose to our drivers tonight in this round of racing. But as we get ready to go racing, you're tuning live to this broadcast, which is available to you on free media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you may be joining us via YouTube, and hello to those of you on YouTube, including Alex Meredith, and that's the YouTube channel of Next Gen Racing. Alternatively, if you're a Facebook user, you may be tuning in via our official Facebook group, and that's at facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. Well, lastly, if you're more of a Twitch user, you may be tuning in via twitch.tv/TX141. And who is TX141, I hear you ask? Well, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I'll be bringing you all your racing action tonight, and indeed for the entirety of this series. And well, we should point out that whilst this is a live broadcast, the racing action you are seeing is not live. It's a post-round broadcast, and the racing actually occurred as of Friday, the 21st of April last week. And we'll bring it to you as if it were live. So what does that mean in terms of the differences you can expect? Well, I as your host and commentator do not know what happens in any of the practice, qualifying or race sessions. It's completely raw and new to me, and that way we'll be bringing as close as possible to the raw live experience for you guys and girls tuning in at home. And if you did participate in any of these races, or you do know the result of any of the sessions, and of course the races at the very end, we do ask that you avoid any potential spoilers for all the individuals that tune in at home, because of course we don't want it to be spoiled for them. But in terms of our schedule for tonight, times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. In just under 13 minutes time, we'll be heading into qualifying, our 15-minute session to get the session underway today. And indeed, what a qualifying session it is going to be, with track position being ever critical to success here at Oulton Park. After that, we'll make our way to the grid for our first race of the day. Of course, we have 3 sprint races on the schedule. Sprint race number 1 being 12 laps and all than 12 laps, and it'll be kicking off at approximately 8:30, while drivers will grid up and get underway. And after that, we'll be taking a brief break before returning at what will be approximately at 9 o'clock this evening for our second race. There, of course, the finishing positions will carry on from what is race 1 into the grid for race number 2. And after race 2 has concluded, we have a brief breather as well before setting the grid for race number 3, and we'll be coming back at approximately 9:30. And now, of course, we do have our partial reverse grid. But as we get ready to go racing, let's take a look to our calendar thus far and what we've still got lying in wait. And as we can see, we started off back on the 7th of April with the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit in the United Kingdom. And there, whilst it may have been a short course in the county of Kent, by no means was the racing short in terms of the drama that came with it. And it was an absolute cracking trio of races to kick off the campaign. Then last week, we made our way to the United States of America for what I would argue is the American equivalent of Brands Hatch. And of course, it was the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in the state of California. And there, Monterey County absolutely delivered on the 14th of April with thrilling races. And of course, we started to see a potential momentum change in the Pro and Overall Championship, with Chris Daines finally falling to the pressure of Adam Delmont in the 3rd race of the day. But of course, Chris Daines has been the big man to beat so far, and it is of course round number 3 today. The race occurred on the 21st of April, and after Oulton Park, we're making our way back to the United States of America for Lime Rock Park on the 28th of April. And well, that is going to be a very different tone of circuit compared to our opening 3 rounds. We've got plenty to look forward to there before we head into our mid-season break, and we'll be returning for round number 5 to kick off the second half of the season on the 12th of May. away. That'll be in Germany at the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, and our drivers will be taken to a circuit which has had some rather controversial names given to it, particularly its turn 1 in the past. Of course, John Clem perhaps at the foreground with regards to those nicknames of the opening corner and the circuit, but either way, the circuit is now a staple of Cup racing and definitely one to be excited for. And then round number 6, we're making our way down under to Australia for the Oulton Park circuit on the 19th of May, before then making our way back to the United Kingdom for the Silverstone circuit on the 26th of May, and we'll be bringing it all to a close in the state of New York in the US of A with Watkins Glen International on the 2nd of June. And well, that's where it's going to be NXTGEN meets Clio's and meets NASCAR, if you will, with Watkins Glen holding the highest average lap speed of any of our circuits on the calendar, but still plenty in store. And well, as we make our way into round number 3, let's give you a reminder of the Drivers' Championship after 2 rounds. We can see here Chris Daines overall leads the way, then 156 points, 40 clear of Adam Delmont. The 2 pro drivers at the top, with Adam Delmont finally jumping ahead of Lee Holmes after 6 races conducted, and well, Adam Delmont now trying to carry on that momentum, and he'll be looking to reel in the gap versus Daines. Of course, Daines the favourite so far, and with Lee Holmes EMP3, their fellow pro driver, on 110 points, he'll be thinking about what he can do in order to stay relevant in that top 2 battle and make sure it remains a freeway battle and not starts to break away from him. Meanwhile, speaking of breaking away, the top 3 have broken away from the rest of the field, with the Pro-Am driver of Ian Manners, EMP4 and 67 points, and he does have a 15-point advantage over Shane Piggott, with the top 5 being followed up in P6 by Jamie Dory on 43 points, looking to try and find a bit more momentum going into tonight, and he's only 2 points clear of the pair of Mark Sykes and Lee Horn, with the Pro-Am ahead of the other Pro-Am based on result countback, and that's Sykes ahead of Horn. Then we do have Rhys Saunders, EMP9, the Pro driver, who's got a 2-point advantage over Adam McNally, and outside the top 10, best of the rest there, Phil McDougall on 34 points, and you can see however close it is in the battle to be inside the top 10, with Craig Jones in P12 only a further point to field, and then we do have the pair of Tim Rutten and Mikey Pollard. P15, Matthew Addy there on 28 points, continuing to build some momentum in the Pro-Am class, and we'll see that a little bit more shortly when we come to this particular class standings, with Gavin Garner P16 ahead of Michael Lees, and then Glenn Humberstone, Roger Morton and Daniel Fritz complete your top 20. Outside the top 20, not to be forgotten about, meanwhile, we do see Darren Ills in P21 and Mark Cadmore in P22, all drivers accounted for who have points, and yet to score points in the overall category. John Higgins Jr., Thomas Delaney, Josh Brown, Simon Robson, Mark Arrowsmith, Steve Howe, Dan Skinner, Carl Jacquelet and Lewis Benny. We then come to the Pro class, remembering, of course, that this is a drivers-only championship. There's no teams championship, but this is focused now particularly on the Pro class position, finishing positions, we should say, and Chris Daines leading the way there, and the advantage stands at a margin of 35 points. Now, that sounds like a lot, but it can be overturned in a single night if results do not go the way of Chris Daines, and well, Oulton Park, of course, is a circuit where you need to be on form from qualifying all the way throughout, and Daines will be wary of that, as much will most of our drivers be. Adam Delmont in P2, meanwhile, 121 points. He's 7 points clear of Lee Holmes, but Holmes at this point in time looking to bounce back tonight, and I get the feeling this may be a circuit that suits him quite well given the practice times that are currently going in, with Shane Piggott in P4 and 82 points there, and again the top 3 breaking away in the Pro class. Shane Piggott holding on to that run in the chasing pack, with is there an 8-point advantage over Rhys Saunders, and then we do have a 24-point gap to Adam McNally in P6 ahead of Jamie Dory, with Gavin Gard and Glenn Humberstone both on 38 points, and John Higgins Jr. yet to score a point in the Pro class. We then come on to the Pro-Am class, and we can see here in our 20 drives, the complexion is a little bit different. It's Ian Manners who is breaking away at the top of the stands on 123 points, and he has a 28-point advantage now over Mark Sykes. Sykes, of course, your leader after round number 1, but Manners has bounced back and immediately taken hold. Mark Sykes, meanwhile, will be looking to try and fight on, with Lee Horn close behind, only 6 points off, and then we do have Tim Rutten only a further 12 points to field, and we can see how the top 10 very close together, with then Phil McDougall P5 on 76 points and only 1 off of Rutten, but in return only 3 clear of Craig Jones in P6. Matthew Addy on 71 points. He'll be looking to carry his momentum forward, with Michael Lees there in P8 on 62 points, and then Mikey Porter and Darren Ills complete your top 10. With a sizable gap between Pollard and Ills, but of course looking to the best of the rest, Roger Morton in P11, the 26-point trial will be looking to jump into the top 10 or get as close as he possibly can to Ills come the end of tonight. Mark Cadmore in P12 on 24 points, only ahead of Daniel Fritz based on result countback, and then we do have Lewis Benny and Mark Arrowsmith ahead of Simon Robson to complete all tries in the run to P16 who have got points scored. Meanwhile, yet to score points, Thomas Delaney, Josh Brown, Steve Howe and Dan Skinner. As we look from our standings then, we come to our circuit for today, and what we said we're at Oulton Park, but what we didn't tell you is that we're running the island configuration of the circuit located near the town of Little Budworth, in the village of Little Budworth I should say, in the county of Cheshire in England and the United Kingdom. And as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com, thank you to them for their wonderful simulator, of course, on which we host this series, and of course the track maps that come with it. This circuit is a very tricky one, because a two-dimensional image does not quite convey the elevation changes and the sweeping nature of the corners that seeing the circuit side would be able to convey to you. And having recently attended the British GT here, the season opener for the season, I can tell you those elevation changes are absolutely dramatic. For as our drivers make their way across the start finish line and up towards turn 1 at Old Hall Corner, they'll come into the right-hander, which has quite a depression on its apex, but as they make the way on out, they'll make sure not to be ejected out the corner and take understeer with them to the grass, but instead keep it on the course. They head down the avenue and into Denton's at turn 2, the downhill right-hand kink, which sets up the run into Cascade at turn number 3. Coming through turn 3, it's all about managing the car's speed and making sure not to carry too much speed on corner entry in order to understeer deep, and then return, making sure to return to the throttle at the right time and get back to full throttle as soon as possible to carry the speed through Lakeside and up towards the hairpin at turn number 4. However, get it wrong and our drivers may find themselves trimming the grass on the exit of Cascades, and of course they won't want to be doing that. In the route towards turn number 4, this is where we're going to see our ultimate flashpoint for overtaking opportunities. Onto the brakes, our drivers will go, and as they exit out and charge their way down the back straight, they'll head into Hislop chicane at turns 5, 6 and 7, and as they make their way through turn 7, of course they'll charge through at the infamous Knickerbrook corner, and coming uphill through turn 7, it's the run through Clay and Water Tower down towards Druids Corner at turn number 10. Going through the two kinks of 8 and 9, they'll need to go line astern as they come into Druids Corner, with the corner being a double right hand apex, and of course overtaking opportunities there, limited in supply, but also on top of that, the bumps in the road at Druids Corner, our drivers will be looking to try and keep it on the asphalt, there's no question about it. Heading out turn number 10, they'll make their way down towards Lodge at turn number 11, the final major corner, onto the brakes there, and of course they'll go through the dip of the apex curve into the rise on exit, and then drive down into Deer Leap before charging out to turn 12 to complete the lap and do it all over again. But speaking of going over things again, let's give you a quick reminder of our race rules, and this is a fixed setup series whereby our drivers are required to bring a particular setup to each and every race, as defined by NXTGEN Racing. Driver classes, meanwhile, shall be finalised as of round 3, so after today, our driver classes will be locked in for the rest of the season, unless by exception something erroneous should occur. And sprint race-wise, the race 1 grid shall be set based on results of qualifying. The race 2 grid shall be set based on results of race 1, so what that means is the winner of race 1 starts on pole for race 2, and we work our way on down. And race 3's grid shall be a partial reverse grid based on results of the race 2 finisher positions, and this is with regards to the top half of the grid being reversed. So putting that into layman's terms, however many drivers we have attend today, we'll see the grid split into 2, and it'll be the top half that is inverted, and with 20 drivers in attendance or predicted attendance, it means that we'll see a top 10 inverted grid for our final race. So the winner of race 2 will start P10, and we make our way down to P10 in terms of finishing positions in race 2. The 10th place finisher in race 2 will start on pole for race number 3, and then the 11th place finishers and such forth from race number 2, they'll be starting exactly where they finished for the grid on race number 3. Each driver shall have 2 fast repairs available in each race, and each race shall conclude after either allotted lap amount or 30 minutes, whichever expires first. But that's enough rules and regulation. I know what you're all here for. You're here for the racing, and as we head to circuit sidewall right now, Lee Holmes are making his way on around there in at the 88 Tech Racing at 35 car, and as he charges his way down the back straight and head up into Hislop chicane, where you can see the delta between himself and Adam Delmont only a 10th, and we said earlier, looking very fast around. Indeed, both drivers are looking fierce, and they'll be thinking about what they can achieve in terms of lap times in order to set themselves up with an opportunity to take on this man, the NXTGEN Racing driver from Denmark of Chris Daines in the 111 car, of course, championship leader going into tonight, and he'll be thinking all about making sure to maintain that lead, but it may look as though he may not have as much of an edge as he has at the previous 2 locations we've been to, and he doesn't necessarily need to win every race, he just needs to be consistent throughout the season, and that's what championship campaigns are built on. As he makes his way out of the final couple of corners, coming out of Lodge and into Deer Leap. We also look to the Pro-Am class, and well, you can tell the difference between our pros and the Pro-Ams, and the fact that on the time and tail, the pros will have a green sash against their name, as Daines moves up to P2 in practice on a 33.684, and meanwhile those who are in the Pro-Am class, such as Michael Lees, they will have what is there, a purple pink sash against their name, and the NXTGEN Racing driver here currently P2 in the Pro-Am class, P7 overall, with Mikey Pollard in P5. In fact, in the pit lanes, we do see the DCW Racing driver parked on up, and we do have another DCW racing machine coming on in, and that is Ian Manners making his way into the pit lane. And, well, championship leader in the Prime class of Ian Manners, only P11 at the moment, but still plenty of time because, of course, qualifying is coming up very shortly. And, well, as he gets ready to go, we do need to introduce one new driver for today, and it is Dan Skinner in the number 12 car. He joins representing NXTGEN Racing. We do have quite a few drivers of NXTGEN Racing competing in this series, but all battling hard to have bragging rights effectively. But welcome to Dan Skinner, who'll be competing in the Prime class. And as he gets ready to go, of course, he'll find himself right in the thick of it from the outset into a Prime class that has been heavily established, and a lot of big names in the class, including Result Clothing's Craig Jones. And Craig Jones wasn't quite necessarily on the pace at Brands Hatch, but Laguna Seca starting to build some momentum, the 29 driver, and we're looking forward to seeing how he gets on here. He really has proven to be a driver who's stronger in the race compared to qualifying, and I think that could bode quite well, albeit qualifying a very pivotal part of the race day in any regard, but particularly here, given the tight track width. Well, as Jones makes his way down into his laps, he gets ready to go qualifying. Indeed, all of our drivers do, as we transition into the qualifying session, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen. But as our drivers make the way out onto circuit, how are they all going to get on? That is the question. And, well, we haven't cut away because we have found that actually we can transition straight from practice to qualifying without issue. That issue has been resolved by the looks of things going forward. But regardless, 15 minutes, and here we go. All our drivers make the way out of the pits, and who will be on pole in class and overall by the end of it? Well, let's find out. Well, as our drivers make the way on out, we do say hello to a good number of you in the chats, including the YouTube chat and also the Facebook chat. And, well, we said hello to Alex Meredith there earlier, who said, "Poor Paul doing NXTCC, and now this, your voice must be dead." Well, my voice has still got a little bit of life left in it. They haven't quite had to resuscitate it as of yet, but I do appreciate your compliment there, Alex. And, well, it's very nice to have you joining in. Of course, you must be quite tired after racing the NXTCC last night. And indeed, if you didn't tune into that, ladies and gentlemen, we strongly recommend that after this broadcast you do make it a favourite alternative. You put it on your watch later playlist on YouTube to tune in to the NXTCC previous round at Imola, because of absolute spectacle in Italy, no question about it. We also say hello there to, in the Facebook chat, Katie Eames, who says everyone's favourite BTCC circuit if you're from this area. Well, indeed, I'd have to agree with you there, Katie, albeit I'm a little bit biased towards Brands Hatch, but I can understand the draw of Oulton Park for everybody in the local area, and indeed around the United Kingdom there is something absolutely mystical and magical about the Oulton Park circuit, as we do see a driver parked up there, and I believe that is Reece Saunders, who's decided to park up and be towed to the pit. Well, for Saunders, something went wrong at Nickelbrook, and he's bringing it back into the pit lane to take a look. And, well, we also say hello there to iRacing at Delmont77 in the YouTube chat, who says good evening, and good evening to you, Adam. But as our drivers now get set to go on to their opening flying laps this qualifying session, some of you may be wondering, what does it take to deliver a good lap at Oulton Park in qualifying? Well, around here, it's all about being able to manage the understeer of the Clio Cup car. In fact, we've got a lot of corners on this circuit which are sweepers in the way they approach the apex, including turn number 1, as we do see McNally making his way on through. And the idea being you want to get the car to connect with the apex curve precisely on point at the midpoint, and then be able to return to the throttle and use all the width on corner exit. Get it right and you'll find you carry the maximum possible speed up towards the next corner. Get it wrong, however, and you'll either find that you're not using all the circuit width and you lose about 2 to 4 miles an hour in the run to the next corner. Alternatively, you end up using too much width for the circuit and also navigate your way to the grass. You have to find that middle ground, and that's why this circuit is a confidence challenger, in the fact that it really does come down to your ability to use all the potency of the car at your disposal in order to get the lap time. And the tow around here will be quite powerful in the run down the back straight, but we have got predominantly very short straights around here, which means there's not too much opportunity to seize on the slipstream of another car. You may gain 1 to 2 tenths on the straights, but where you're in the dirty of another car, you may lose out quite significantly in the subsequent corners. And as we see it, Roger Morton making his way down into the Hislop chicane with the DCW racing machine just in front of him there, and we're trying to discern who that is. I think it's the number 52 making his way around. In fact, it is Ian Manners just in front of Morton, as Morton there gets a smooth run coming out of Nickelbrook, and up the hill he goes. Charging on through and in towards Druids Bend. Well, some of you may be wondering as to the reason why Nickelbrook is known as Nickelbrook. It's a good tale with regards to the corners they've at turn at number 7, and the reason behind it, it's a little bit of an explicit reason, but we'll keep it PG-13 for the broadcast, is that when the corner was being developed, indeed the circuit was being developed, and where demolition work was going on at the corner in order to be able to essentially excavate the space for the corner to be set up, and, well, there was a couple that were courting the corner, or a tree near the corner, and well, as they ran off, because of the fact they were disturbed by the demolition work, what ended up being found at the corner was a pair of knickers, and well, you could put two and two together with regards to what that may insinuate, but indeed that's how Knickerbrook gets its name, in the fact a pair of knickers at where there used to be a brook in terms of forestry, and that is how the name got in place. But speaking of getting things in place right now, Lee Horn currently P7, and he is 7.5 tenths off of the provisional pole lap set by Lee Holmes overall, and with Mikey Pollard there P2, and well, Pollard absolutely delivering so far in qualifying, albeit we do have to keep in mind that some of these laps may have invalidations on them, and we can't quite discern that until we go to the grid, so we're going to presume that every lap until notified is a valid lap, and Mikey Pollard right now definitely flying. And well, there was a little bit of a rumour down the paddock this circuit may suit some drivers. Everybody's absolutely itching to go to Oulton Park, some more than others, and Pollard and Holmes right now definitely feeling that itch, there's no question about it. And speaking of Lee Holmes, well, here is your provisional pole sitter heading on through Druids Bend and coming on down, and we'll very shortly ride on board with him for a reference lap of the Oulton Park circuit, and I think it is going to be quite a sensational one as he comes onto the brakes there into Lodge Corner. Through turn number 11 he goes, and as he does, and we ride on board here as he heads up towards turn number 1. We'll turn it a little bit too early there through Dearly, but almost connecting with the wall, but bringing it back together and heading in towards the opening corner. He'll go on to the brakes here, approximately 75 metres from corner apex entry, and as he comes through the right-hander in 4th gear, keeping 2 wheels within the white lines, that's the track limits, as he now makes his way down through 2 and in towards Cascade at 3. Now having to brake early here with a bump in the road, being where you need to brake before otherwise the car gets launched in, and as he carries the speed out to Cascade, beautiful line there from Holmes, using all the width of the circuit as he now heads down towards turn at number 4, brings the car gradually over to the left-hand side of the road for braking into the hairpin, goes deep initially because of course you can exploit a late apex, so you want to take a V-shape approach ready to the corner rather than a U-shape approach, and Holmes demonstrates that as he now makes his way down the back straight, building up through the gearbox into 4th gear. We're shortly up into top gear in 5th, and as he does now, braking his way into his lots corner, braking at the 100-metre board, coming on through the right into left chicane, turns 5 and 6, and keeping the car over to left as much as possible for Knickerbrook Corner, and then going in nice and early for the apex, and as he powers out, letting 2 wheels run up onto the curb, as he comes now up the rise he goes towards Druids. Through the kinks of 8 to 9 in 4th gear, and then up to 5th, charging up towards the double right apex and turn at number 10 into Druids Corner, braking here at approximately 75 metres from the first apex, balance the throttle and then let the car coming out there without going too aggressive on the throttle, as otherwise the car gets ejected out the corner, but he keeps it nice and tight as he makes his way down towards Lodge and braking into turn number 11, braking at approximately 125 metres from corner apex, 2nd gear on entry and now powering out, doesn't quite use all the width, and I think Holmes there might be coming into the pit lane, he is indeed, so it was a rush back to the pits. I think he needs to get a bit more fuel in the car before he goes once more, but meanwhile no more improvement in terms of lap times at the moment in terms of the top 2. Lee Horn does move to P5 on a 34.045. He's now 3/10 of the pole lap, and effectively 3/10 off of both the overall and the class pole lap in the prime class, but who else out there may be having a bit of difficulty by comparison with Dan Skinner yet to get a lap on the board, a newcomer as of tonight as he makes his way through Druids Bend and coming up towards Lodge very shortly. Well, Skinner will be looking to try and put down a marker in terms of where he fits into the pack, and again, that's the thing, when you join mid-season in a class, you're a newcomer, and everybody will raise an eyebrow in terms of where do you fit into the pecking order, because there has been a bit of an established order, but of course I try to vying to be the best of the best in class as much as they can, but Skinner heads the line. Well, it's looking quite a smooth lap. I don't think it's going to be right up there, but it is good enough for P9, a 34.381, and will 6.5 tenths off the overall and also the class pole. It does mean for Skinner, he's given himself a good assertion in terms of being P3 in class currently, and with half the qualifying session still to go, one would imagine he's got a little bit more steam in the car and he might be able to exploit it, and given that Ian Manners as well is only there, what is 500ths of the Skinner's time, well, Manners will raise an eyebrow at this and definitely think right now, okay, I've got some work to do. I may be championship leader, but it's not going to stay that way if I don't end up qualifying inside the top 10. As he comes in through turns 8 and 9, of course, that's why we have 3 races around. It leads to a mix-up in the field, and even if a driver has a difficult qualifying session, they're able to battle the way to the top half of the field, well, then they are rewarded in race at number 3. As you see a little bit of a side-by-side there between 2 drivers making the way into Druids Bend, and what I do believe that may have been Adam Delmont making his way on past another driver. Can't quite see who that was, but as they make the way on out, meanwhile, what we can definitely see is the smiley car of Mark Cadmore as it makes its way around, currently P19, and we are hearing that Matthew Andy, who is expected to attend, they've got technical issues with the Clio in the garage, and they won't be able to get out into qualifying, and they may not be able to get it repaired for race number 1, but he'll be targeting getting it repaired for race number 2. There's no question about that, as Cadwell goes a little bit deep there coming out of turn number 6, has to swing the car back together, but sets up nicely for Nickelbrook corner. He is currently 6/10 off of Morton's time in P18, but again, Cadwell's been another one of those drivers where he's been normally one of the slower drivers in qualifying, but when we do go racing, he avoids the instance on the opening laps, and we saw that Laguna Seca in particular, where he just gradually built his way through the field, lost some places towards the end of the race where faster drivers caught back up after their instance, but Cadwell also shown his defensive capabilities, and he's building that pace time and time again, and of course that's why this series is open to all drivers for all skill levels, whether you're a pro all the way through to a rising amateur and put in the prime class, and will everybody learn as they make their way around each and every circuit. But as he heads to the timeline here, what can Cadwell do this time? He did improve in the first half lap, and in fact he does find a 35.495, and well, he's battling hard with Morton effectively for not being on where's the final spot of the grid, with the gap between the two of them now being a 10th, and it's definitely noticeable how Cadwell's pace is getting closer to his peers as he makes his way down towards turn 3, and I think he's going to take a huge boost of confidence from that in the end of this qualifying session. Meanwhile, as we look to Phil McDougall, the CXR Project Black driver, of course, in the infamous green and black livery, it always stands out and it stands proud, and in the 83 car, currently at P14, was P6 in the prime class as he comes through at turn number 7 there. And well, for McDougall, this circuit not quite working to his strengths at the moment. We saw him put in quite the performance at Brands Hatch. Laguna Seca was up there as well, but it does seem as though Oulton Park, a little bit of a circuit that's bringing him back down to earth as he comes into Druids Bend. As he comes through the long right-hander, well, he is currently what is a whole 10th of a second off of Gavin Gardner, and Gavin Gardner perhaps the biggest shock in them all. The Next Gen Racing Pink driver having some difficulty with regards to the qualifying lap. He's the lowest placed pro at this time as he makes his way through the right-hander turn at number 4, coming through the hairpin. And as we hear, Chris Daines improved to a 34.012. He's P5 at the moment. He is championship leader Chris Daines in the pro and overall categories, and 2 3/4 attempts of Lee Holmes' pole lap, but we still got time to go, and with that there could be an opportunity for a few surprises to be sprung on us. And perhaps the most noticeable thing at the moment, if you look particularly from what is P9 all the way down to P14, so from Michael Lees through to Phil McDougall in the overall qualifying standings, it is only 4 tenths between them, if that. In fact, it's 3 tenths. Now we do a bit of mental mathematics, and 3 tenths could be the difference between Gavin Gardner being P13 and being inside the top 10 in this qualifying session as he goes a bit deep. Druids and catches the car just in time. Well, that was very close to mark, and well, for Gavin Gardner there, that is a catch which he'll be very proud of afterwards, albeit I think right now his heart might be in his mouth, because that was a very close moment with the wall. And well, when the car goes coming out of Druids, you know it's gone entirely. But meanwhile, as he brings himself back up to speed and settles back on down, we do look to what is Darren Hills, who now in P19, and we saw him earlier being given a bit of a 2-1 coming through Druids with Adam Delmont, but the 2-2-3 driver here currently at what is 1.5 seconds off the pole lap. He is our lowest placed qualifying driver with a lap on the board, but he's on an out lap and he's looking to go once again. It's a bit of a battle between him, Cadmore and Morton for what is P17. Mark Sykes then being a further 4 attempts up the road. Indeed, quite the battle growing between them as we say hello in the YouTube chat to Matt Sandals, who says that this track is one of my personal favourites. Well, that's absolutely brilliant to hear, Matt, that you are a fan of the British circuit. Indeed, good number of viewers are, and I will say that I'm one of those as well. And well, when we have the circuit announced on the calendar, it did not help. It did not prevent me from wanting to squeal a little bit in the fact Oulton Park always a circuit that generates fantastic single class or single make racing. And as we see Jamie Dory going down towards turn number 4, and as he does here, well, Jamie Dory as well, after his successes of NXTGEN, right now I think having to adjust the fact he's got a lot less horsepower in the car, and therefore having to focus on essentially carrying all that speed from quarter to quarter as he heads on down. So remember, these machines run about 200 horsepower with their sequential manual 5-speed transmission gearboxes, and as he comes down towards the chicane that hits Lops, well, right now what he doesn't have in power he has to make up for through manoeuvrability and carrying the speed as he comes on through turn at number 7. Meanwhile, fastest man on circuit still Lee Holmes on a 133.738, and Mikey Bollard only 2 thousandths off by comparison. No change between the pair in terms of those 2 class pole laps and the overall pole lap. I think they've really nailed it out of the park from the outset, and right now they're trying to find that last edge. But as he heads up the hill, Lee Holmes I think will be a little bit concerned that Pollard it is ever so close. And, well, meanwhile, one driver who is flying around there, Shane Piggott, as he comes through the final major corner here at turn number 11, coming out of Lodge. He's improved in Sector 1. In Subsector 2, he's gone purple, best of everybody. As he comes to the timeline, can Piggott find a way? He moves up to P3, and, well, that is now only 5 thousandths off of overall pole. We've got 3 drivers separated by less than 100th. My good lord, it's going to be the closest end to a qualifying session that we've seen this season so far, and indeed one of the closest I've ever seen in my history of motorsport, as he comes on down through turn number 3. And, well, for Piggott, can he find a way to just go a little bit further and potentially take the pole, as Lee Holmes is in the pit lane? And, well, Piggott's going to have one more lap in which to try and deliver this, we reckon, as he comes on down into the hairpin. And meanwhile, we do look from into Roger Morton, and Morton coming out of, excuse me, what is there, the Lodge corner and on towards the timeline. And, well, he's decided to come into the pits. Nothing left for Morton, and that lap not an improvement. I think for Pollard it's the same as well. So the DCW Racing driver thinks he's done everything he can, and now time will tell in terms of can anybody respond, as Michael Lee's making his way down towards Lodge, and as he heads on through there, a little bit of a distant tow come off the back of Adam Delmont. And coming out of the final quarters, then up towards the timeline, 20 seconds left on the clock, and heading on towards what will be the timer. What's it going to be here? Delmont does not improve. What about Lease? Neither does he improve. They stay P4 and P9 respectively. And, well, looking further down the field, Gavin Garner heading to the timeline. P13 is where he will stay, as the clock is about to strike 15 minutes as of now. Checker flag is out on this qualifying session, and, well, can anybody else find the last ditch effort on time here, as we see Dan Skinner, who moved into P9 early on in the qualifying session, dropped back to P11, still P4 in the Prime class over on. As he heads to the line, he comes into the pits. He's decided enough's enough. There's no more time out there for him, and, well, we've only got a limited number of drivers now on qualifying laps, and that is Reece Saunders, who's P5, and another big name up there in the Pro class, indeed putting himself ahead of Chris Daines. Daines in the pit lane, so he's not going to improve from P6 any further, but we have got a top 3 that in the end is confirmed to be separated by 5 thousandths, and it's up to Adam Delmont and Reece Saunders whether they can get themselves into that mix. But Lee Holmes right now, I think he might be biting his fingernails a little bit in the garage, and the same for Mikey Pollard, particularly for Pollard even more so, because that will be a Prime who's on the front row of the grid going into race number 1. And as they come down into the right hand for with turn number 11, Alex Meredith there saying in terms of qualifying, the only thing close I can think of is Jerez at 1997 in Formula 1. I do believe the lap times were identical there. Correct me if I'm wrong, you may have a better memory, but as we do see it, Saunders coming across the line, does not improve. 34.034 was what he hit there, and not quite able to match his previous 33.89. Meanwhile, Michael Lee's heading to the line. He's going to be one of 2 drivers yet to cross on their final lap. Gavin Garner the other, and as Lee's heads on through, well, he does not improve from P9, and Gavin Garner, the last driver to take the time onto the line. Then what's it going to be for him as he comes across? He's P13 currently. He improves to P12. He gets ahead of Ian Manners, but he will be the lowest placed pro on the grid. And, well, indeed, we can see that the pros are primarily up inside the top 10, but then we do have Gavin Garner just outside the top 10, P12. But that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. It's Lee Holmes on the overall and pro pole, and joining him on the front row, P2, it's your prime pole sitter of Mikey Pollard. And, well, sat there at the moment for DCW Racing, the 73 driver. They're going to be absolutely ecstatic in the garage because of the fact they've put in an absolutely brilliant qualifying lap, and now he's got the best part of what is 4 cars between himself and closest rival Lee Horn. And Lee Horn, to be fair, a massive mention too in the fact Lee Horn putting together an absolutely superb lap to put himself P2 in the Prime class and P7 on that grid, with Adam McNally joining him on the 4th row. As our drivers get ready to go, it is only about a minute before we head to the grid. Of course, we do have a little bit of further time, but our drivers are now being taken to the grid. And, well, how will they get on in race number 1? Let's find out. So as the grid is set, this is how they line up for the first race of the day. Lee Holmes takes pole position for 88 Tech Racing by what is 3 thousandths in the end, rounded up to DCW Racing's Mikey Pollard, your prime pole sitter, who starts P2. We then have the pair of Shane Piggott from Ace of Spades Racing and Adam Delmont for NXTGEN Racing. They start P3 at P4. With row number 3 going to Team Year 1's Reece Saunders and Chris Daines from NXTGEN Racing. Then behind them, Lee Horn for NXTGEN Racing starts off our 4th row, and Adam McNally in P8 joins him for NXTGEN Racing, ahead of the fellow NXTGEN racing pair of Michael Lees and Jamie Dory, who complete the top 10. On row number 6, it's another next-gen racing pair of Dan Skinner and Garen Gardner, and then on row number 7, it will be Ian Manners and DCW Racing, joined by Result Clones Craig Jones, with row number 8 going to Mark Sykes for next-gen racing and CXR Project Black's Phil McDougall, 2 drivers who are out of position in terms of qualifying. Roger Morton and Mark Cadmore start on the 9th row for Result Club in the privateer outfit for Cadmore, and then Darren Ills and Matthew Addy will start on the final 10th row of the grid to complete the top 20. Ace of Spades Racing driver joined by Next Gen Racing. But as we get ready to go, then we are waiting for confirmation if Addy can make it to the grid for this first race of the day, although I think it may be that the car is still being repaired, so they're going to try and get it out for race number 2. But we are only approximately 40 seconds away now from going lights out here at Oulton Park, and Lee Holmes and Mikey Pollard will both know they start on a slight inclination, much like at Laguna Seca for the pole sitters in the front 3 rows, but it's the front 2 this time that start on a small rise, and that could see the car slightly roll when they try to get underway, but will they be able to manage that roll and get the run they need into turn number 1? It's going to be Holmes versus Pollard into the opening corner. Both drivers keen to bring home the win in their class, but I think for Mikey Pollard, he would love to also bring home a win overall as a Pro-Am. That's not been done so far, and can he pull it off for DCW Racing? That will be the dream question. 10 seconds and counting now, and behind, of course, Shane Piggott and Adam Delmont. And Shane Piggott having his best qualifying session of the season, starting P3. But here's the grid, and we await the lights. It's lights out and away we go for race number 1 here of round 3 of the Clio Cup in the front-wheel drive Friday series. And as our drivers make their way towards turn 1, Lee Holmes gets a brilliant start, and Mikey Pollard follows him. Meanwhile, at the inside of Shane Piggott goes Adam Delmont immediately into the opening corner, and Delmont seizing on the opportunity as they now make their way through 2 and in towards Cascades very shortly. But coming on down, it's going to be cold tyres and brakes for the first time, and everyone having to be wary of this as Adam Manali looking for the move up the inside of what is Lee Horn. Horn not fighting it too hard, letting it go. I think a sensible move from Lee Horn as they make their way up towards the turn 4 island hairpin, and as they do, we've got a driver off. Oh goodness me, that's a driver to the wall, and Mark Sykes getting it wrong coming out of Cascades, and the car cutting loose. But meanwhile, we look back up to the front runners, and we can see it, Chris Daines in contact with Shane Piggott trying to make the move there at the hairpin, and in the end Shane Piggott gaining the ground. And as we can see a flash of lights from Chris Daines, not too pleased with being elbowed out, and it's the start of the day. They'll want to calm down a little bit now as they make their way into Hislop chicane for the first time, and we can see there the building stack behind with Lee Horn. Oh, and contact there between Lee Horn and Michael Lees, as Leon tries to get the car back together, but it's gone so very, very wrong. And for Leon, after starting P2 in class, he's been pushed backwards and now side by side with Ian Manners, and Phil McDougall also trying to go on through as they head up towards Druids Bend. But now they'll go line astern as McDougall finally can't go on the outside there as they head through turn number 9 and in towards 10. But it has been a dramatic start to the day for both Mark Sykes and also Lee Horn, and Michael Lees thrown into the mix as well. But as they come down out of Druids and in towards Lodge Corner, everybody now started to settle down, the tempo building in terms of the rate of racing, as we see out the inside of Dan Skinner goes Garen Gardner. Gardner having a poor qualifying session, but turning that round upside down when he's gone racing, there's no doubt about it. But after one lap, it is Lee Holmes who leads ahead of Mikey Pollard P2, Adam Delmont P3, Shane Piggott then P4 in the second pack, who's ahead of Chris Daines at this time. Adam Manali in P6, ahead of Reece Saunders with Jamie Dory P8, and we have Dan Skinner and Garen Gardner complete in the top 10 as they all come down towards Cascades once again. But as they head on down, indeed, all the drivers now settling into a rim. We can see their Skinner battling with Garen Gardner still, and best rest Craig Jones just behind, and of course Jones chasing after Dan Skinner for P2 in the prime class as they head up towards the hairpin and coming on through. We jump on board, well, in fact we won't be jumping on board with Gardner quite shortly. We're staying clear on the exterior cameras as he tries to look for the move. We've got a driver off and we've got another driver off there, and that seems to be a lock up for Dan Skinner, and I believe we've also had Shane Piggott take a trip off the road. Not quite sure what happened to cause that for the Ace of Spades Racing driver, but he has gone off camera, and as he rejoins now, drops all the way back to P17. It's been a difficult start for Shane Piggott, no question about it. I think he'll be fuming after that one, as meanwhile Dan Skinner, he's trying to get the car back onto circuit, and he's dropped all the way down to P19. But meanwhile drama there, and at the front of the field, less dramatic by comparison as Lee Holmes just continues to lead this race ahead of Mikey Pollard and Adam Delmont as the top three, breaking away still, and Chris Daines in P4 now looking at the prospect of going hunting here as they make their way towards the end of the second lap. And in towards Lodge Corner, of course, Adam Delmont, he'll want to try and pick his way on through, and Delmont proven to be one of those drivers. He's not the fastest in qualifying, given the fact he normally tries to build up his pace in qualifying, but when we do go racing, that's where it all comes together. But meanwhile, coming to life here, that's Craig Jones up the inside of Ian Manners, and here comes Lee Horn as well. Well, Jones is going to have the pair of them coming together as they ride on board here on the rear bumper of Jones's car for Result Clothing, and well, it's going to be about who wants it more into the opening corner, and I think it's going to be Horn who wants it there as they go into turn number 1 on the inside, and as they all negotiate the exit, running a bit wide, they'll get away with it a couple of times, but not too many, and Ian Manners looking around the outside into Cascade with the inside into the aforementioned corner now, and as they come through the left-hander, no way through, but Jones goes a little bit deep under braking, and Horn gets an absolutely beautiful run coming off the corner. They make the way down towards the hairpin, and as they get ready to battle on the brakes here, it's going to be Horn around the outside. He's already ahead under braking. We've got a lock up for a driver in front. I think Gavin Garner decided to test the threshold of the brakes, but meanwhile Jones defending on the inside, still too wide off corner. And then down the back straight they go, and as they head in towards turns 5 and 6, heading into his slots very shortly, who's going to be the one who's bold on the brakes here? Well, Horn gets it, and Jones decides to back out. And I think Jones setting up a move later on as they make the way in towards Knickerbrook Corner, but coming on around and up towards turn number 7. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, things are starting to tighten as well, with Lee Holmes not able to break away from Pollard. We're hearing that Delmont is getting closer in that mix, and well, speaking of which, we can take a look to it in the top 3. We can see that Lee Holmes right now only 2.5 tenths ahead of Mikey Pollard, and I wonder if Pollard's just been holding a little bit back initially to give himself the room to bring himself to life in this race in terms of getting those tyres up to temperature, bringing the brakes up to temperature, because of course it does take a couple of laps to really get the car into its optimum operating window, but when it's there, you can go absolutely hammer and tongs with the car. And as they make the way into turn number 1, well, fastest lap of the race goes to Chris Daines, a 33.511 as they make the way into lap number 4. So Daines is pushing there. You can see him, the 4th car in the rear of the picture, as they head down towards Cascades once more. But Daines needs a little bit more time in order to try and get into the hunt as they all come on through. And meanwhile, further back, we do see Ian Manners trying to make the ground on and Craig Jones, with Lee Horn breaking away. And well, Manners now itching for the fight here as they come in towards turn number 3. Phil Madu will just behind, and we jump on board with the CXR Project Black driver as there. Manners gets it wrong coming off corner, and now Madul's going to look for the move around the outside. We are going to lose camera shot there of Manners as Madul goes on the brakes. He's going to be boxed in slightly by Jones. Lock up in front for Horn, and as they come through the right-hander, well, it's going to be a simple case of Manners just putting himself on the inside and making himself as inconvenient as possible. And you can do that, of course, in these machines. If you're on the inside into the island hairpin, you just simply put it there and say to the driver on the outside, what you're going to do, you're going to have to take a much wider circumference, and I can get the power down sooner. And as they make the way through hit slots now, McDougall will know that Manners is ready to defend hard for the position if needed, but Jones not able to capitalise on that to break away. So I think Jones right now in a bit of difficulty in getting the pace down. Indeed, Lee Horn has broken another half a second since the start of this lap, and for Jones, I think the writing's on the wall in terms of the fact he's going to need to look a little bit more rearward rather than forwards at this point in the race, unless he's saving the pace towards the end, perhaps in the final couple of laps. Perhaps he knows something we don't with regards to the tyre degradation around here. But right now, looking at Manners, taking a look around the outside of Jones, can't quite find it as they head onto the brakes into Lodge, and coming through the right hand there, all 3 drivers absolutely hammering the apex curve, and out towards turn number 1 they charge once more onto lap number 5. And what we do, we're fighting at the stereo. You can see every input going in. Want to keep the car pointing as much of a straight line, but as they come into turn number 1, no exchange. And meanwhile, looking from them down towards Darren Ills, well, Ills chasing after Shane Piggott, and Piggott recently finding his way past the Ace of Spades racing drivers. They come out to turn 1 and down towards 2, and the 2 teammates swapping places. Well, I think they're both trying to work together to make a bit more ground, and in fact Piggott there having a much better run off of turn 1. That gap already opened up by 4 attempts on the exit of the corner. It's going to up even more as the 2-2-3 driver just trying to find his feet once more in P17. But as he heads down towards turn number 4, we do look from him up to what's happened to Craig Jones, and Jones is off there at the hairpin. Well, he's gone straight on. Now, whether that was helped by some contact on the rear bumper, or alternatively whether he's just made a mistake and locked up under braking, we're not quite sure of the story. But what we can tell you is that Jones has fallen all the way back to P15, and Shane Piggott trying to take a look up the inside. He won't be able to find it from there. However, it's not a long enough run given the short length of the straight. But Jones now in to fight his way back through and fend off the Ace of Spades machines behind. But as they make the way out to Nickelbrook, meanwhile drives heading out of Druids. Well, here's Lee Holmes at 8 Tech Racing, your race leader still, as he heads down towards Lodge onto the brakes very shortly. The top top four now separated by less than a second. As you can see there in the bottom right, for a brief moment it was, what was 9 attempts and 700s, and as they head up towards the timeline to go on to lap number 6, where it's going to be a potential move here for Pollard as he gets a better run out of Lodge, and in towards turn number 1, it's going to be Holmes defending on the inside, Pollard on the outside as they head onto the brakes. Holmes here now having to be compromised on line, and this is going to cost him ever more time as they come down the hill, and we'll look into the inside into 2. It's going to force him to the outside of Cascades here for Pollard, and with that now Delmont will try and pick the run on Pollard as they come out of 3 and up towards 4, but you can see here this top 4 absolutely pushing one another hard, as meanwhile Reece Saunders, Adam McNally behind in the battle for P5. They've exchanged places, but it's 2 by 2 as they head onto the brakes here. It's Holmes that defend on the inside with Delmont doing the same. Pollard being made to go deep, bit of contact there between Delmont and Pollard as they make the way up towards Hislop chicane, and well, it's a long line. Daines looking to go up the inside here versus old friend and rival. And as they make the way down towards the break, it's over turn number 5. Well, Daines will go all in. Delmont, however, is not one to back out from a challenge. And as they come for a left hand, a bit of door-to-door contact, they both survive it as they come into Nickelbrook, and Daines gets it done. Beautiful move from Daines, but it's not over yet. Now Delmont looks to the inside as he makes way up towards Dritz. It'll be the outside of the 2 left-hand kicks, but they'll settle down, but he hasn't got enough momentum. And Daines finally finds his way through the P3. He's still got half the race to go, and he could at this point be trying to go for the win. But as they make the way through Druid and down towards Lodge, meanwhile behind Reece Saunders trying to break away here from Adam McNally, and well, the idea for Saunders in the Team Year 1 machine, the 23 car, is can he get into that fight inside the top 4, because they're pushing one another quite hard, but they're also costing each other time with the 2 wide moments. And Saunders, after coming past McNally like a rocket, now looking for the next chance to go onto the podium in the pro class, given the fact that Delmont is P3 Pro, P4 overall, and for Saunders he'd love to be on the steps. But as they make the way through turn number 1 here, of course time will tell, and further back we've got a battle here for the podium in the prime class between Phil McDougall and Ian Manners. Manners holding onto the P3 spot, but McDougall looking around the outside, he can't quite find out the money, tries to cut it back through the opening corner as they come down towards Cascades, which is going to be placed on the inside to outside of the turn 2 kink into turn 3, and this will mean now he's got to try and set up another cutback run out of here as he tries to get Manners to go a bit deep, but Manners gets the car stopped in time, and will they have to wait? But meanwhile, not wasted his turn, it's going to be Lee Horn as he tries to go around the outside of Pro trying to Gavin Gardner, and the NXTGEN Racing driver in glaring pink right now having to really fight hard for P8 with Horn cutting back there on the exit. He's going to have a bit more of a run into Lee Horn. Can he inch ahead into the braking zone for his lots? I think he can, given that the gap between the two of them is only 2 thousandths, if that. Horn on the left of the picture, Gardner on the right of the picture. Oh, they've come together, and with that, Gardner being made to take to the escape road, and Lee Horn, it was a lock up on the brakes, and it just upset the car. But meanwhile, whilst that's happened, we do continue to look at the battle in the lead right now, and in particular the battle for P2 overall, as Chris Daines has found his way, of course, past Adam Delmont, and Delmont's still there with him, and now Daines trying to find his way past Pollard, as Delmont takes a quick sneak peek there to the inside, can't quite find the way through, but as they come through the right-hand turn at number 11, laps are starting to trickle on down, albeit the intensity of the racing is by no means lessening as they head up towards turn at number 1 once again, lap 8 of 12 as they head in towards the next braking zone, and as they do, well, now Daines has got to make a gambit. Does he decide to go all in to chase Pollard down, or does he start to settle for P2 in the pro class and just try and keep Delmont at bay, given that Delmont right now is the man to challenge him, albeit Lee Holmes is not too far off in the championship. So I think, in fact, we answer our own question there through Daines needing to win this or get as close as possible to put the pressure on at 2 Holmes as they head up towards turn number 4 once more. He can't afford to let Holmes gain any points, as otherwise Holmes will effectively become the run-up challenger. But meanwhile, Daines up the inside of Pollard. Pollard tries to go back on the cutback, but Daines gets it stopped in time. It's a late move from Chris Daines, but he's made it count, and that is a move which could be championship defining a little bit later on if he can successfully now hunt down Lee Holmes. But as they head in towards his lots, of course, Mikey Pollard taking another look, but he doesn't need to fight this too hard, given he is in the Pro-Am class. He's the Pro-Am leader by the best part of 4 places over Ian Manners in P8, and as they make the way through Wes Nickelbrook corner up towards Druids they go. Well, meanwhile, we do look back to Phil McDougall battling hard with Ian Manners, and well, no change between them other than the fact that McDougall all over the back of Manners from corner to corner, straight to straight, you name it. And well, I think it's only a matter of time before we potentially see a 2-wide situation involving the pair as they come through the rise and in towards Druids corner. But powering on around here, of course, getting close is one thing, overtaking is a different thing in the entirety. And for McDougall, he's been looking very strong over all of the lap, but particularly in the second half of the lap, that's where he's coming alive. But he falls a little bit wide there on the exit of Druids bend. I think having to lift off as well to try and avoid the car wanting to understeer of the road, and onto the brakes for Lodge, and we'll try to get the better X. He does get a tighter approach to the apex, and that's going to give him about a 10th of time as he makes his way on towards turn number 1. They go on to lap number 9 and 12, 4 to go, and well, the battles for the podium are heating up across the classes. As meanwhile, we look to your race leader, and well, Lee Holmes running away with this lead now, 1 second. It doesn't sound like much, but when you put it in perspective in terms of the fact they've been running so close throughout the race, and here's the battle for P2 with Pollard in the middle of the pro sandwich with the prime filler, and as he comes up through the right hand, a bit of a lock up there from Delmont, further contact to Pollard to Daines, and meanwhile, Reece Saunders now looking for the move versus Delmont. I think Saunders having to back off there as they made the way out to the hairpin. It is getting very tight and testy between them, and Adam Manali also in the mix with Jamie Dory starting to encroach. Well, we do have now a pack battling for the lead, or at least the overall podium spots of 7 cars, all gradually coming together, and it's a 9.5 second gap to Ian Manners, Ian P8. So this is wide open right now in terms of overall finishing positions. They head up the hill, and well, not too many more laps remaining, so everybody now trying to get a move on as best as they can. As meanwhile, we do look from Reece Saunders back to Dan Skinner, and Skinner trying to put some pressure onto Roger Morton in the battle for P17, with P9 in the prime class as they head down towards Hislop Chicane. Can he find it, however? I don't think so. In fact, he does find 2 balls onto the grass. Left-hand tyres go, and onto the brakes there, and the car just simply straight lines on, and will Skinner will rejoin, but he will have to give the place to Morton as he gets his way back underway. But meanwhile, we look from him to Manners versus McDougall, and Will McDougall much close on the exit of Druids in towards Lodge, and this time around the outside, Manners will defend hard on the brakes. They come out of the corner, but as they head up towards the timing line, what's it going to be? It's literally neck and neck as they power their way onto lap number 10. 3 more remaining. McDougall's got an advantage now as they headed towards turn 1, but it's on the outside. Manners will look to try and outbrake his rival, but of course it's only so late you can brake. 2 wide through the apex they go, but McDougall's had the space to play with, and he's able to get the power down, and Phil McDougall with a brave move there around the outside into turn number 1 for CXR Project Black. Takes P8 overall, but more importantly for him, P2 in the prime class, and will behind it. Manners will now try and charge on, and Lee Horn meanwhile has got growing pressure from Michael Lees. Why I say that, Michael Lees then cuts a word short by taking it to the grass as he tries to rejoin into the hairpin. He does in the end, but Shane Piggott comes on through, and of course Piggott having to make the recovery drive after the incident at the hairpin in the opening laps of this race. But whilst he's on the recovery, and meanwhile one driver who is trying to right now pull his way back into the fight versus what is Pollard in front is Delmont, as we're hearing that Dan Skinner, in fact we have to cut the thought off there, and what on earth has happened to Dan Skinner? He's looking the wrong way, and that is at what is Hislop Chicane. Well, I'm not quite sure how that's happened for the next gen racing driver, but I think he may have cut a bit of the course, in fact, as he now rejoins, but he's going to rejoin down the order. But Skinner definitely having a nasty run. Unfortunately, we can't give you a replay of what exactly happened, ladies and gentlemen, due to limitations of an iRacing replay file for the purposes of post-round broadcast. But Dan Skinner definitely seeing more to the circuit than the designated course. But as we look from him back up to Delmont, the trainer for here as they go on to the penultimate lap, is that Delmont under pressure and Reece Saunders, and Saunders ever close and closing a little bit more as they come into turn 1. And next in out there, Delmont goes a bit deep, and Saunders in fact getting a really strong run off the corner, and we're looking for the move here as we do have the camera almost taken off the car. But as Delmont now makes his way down through turn at number 3 at Cascade, Saunders again looking for the cutback momentum. He'll close a 10th in the run towards the hairpin, but will it be enough for him to look up the inside? He's thinking about it. Saunders goes in. Delmont's going to try and give him as little space as possible, and it's getting close. But there we can see Saunders just missing the rear bumper of Delmont, doing everything he can to throw this mix into the battle, and well, he can't quite find it this time. Instead, all he can do is wait, watch and listen for another opportunity. But meanwhile, as we look back up to your leaders here, well, Lee Holmes and Chris Daines now separated by only what is 2/10 on the exit of Knickerbrook Corner, and as they head out of the corner, taking a bit of a liberal use there of the exit curve. But to be fair, given the fact it is only 2 laps to go, both drivers are absolutely gunning for gold, and you can understand why Holmes want a win to keep himself right in the hunt for P2 in the championship. Daines up the inside into Druids. It's a bold move. It's not going to work out this time. But as they make their way onwards towards Lodge Corner, we jump on board here with Daines, the next gen racing driver. He's got Pollard just behind, and Pollard's not going to look for the move surely here into Lodge. He'll just let this go, given the fact it's an overall podium as a minimum from Pollard, and it's going to be a guaranteed prime win at this rate. But as they make the way in towards what we turn at number 1. One more lap to go here as they charge on to 12 at 12. The white flag waves, and it's Holmes versus Daines. So we continue to sit on board with the challenger of Daines as he comes into turn 1. Now making his way out of the corner. Of course, where the overtaking opportunity is going to be, well, based on the speed he's demonstrated so far, it will be in the run up towards turn number 4 and also into the Hislop chicane at turns 5 and 6. Beyond that, he may have an opportunity at Druids or Thursday Lodge corner, but he's going to have to be very selective with which one he goes for, because once he commits to one, he won't have the other available. But the gap right now, 3 tenths on the brakes. Daines comes in quite hot to try and close the distance, and now Holmes just simply slowing the car in the apex, trying to take all the speed out of Daines. He knows that Daines is stronger on the exit here, and that's why he's gone for it. It's worked in the fact that Daines right now made to sit 3 tenths back, where it's fully legal, of course, as long as they keep racing, as they make the way down in towards Hislops and close to tyre barriers you can get there for Daines as he comes on through, but he's not at the run he's wanted at Hislop's corner. Through Knickerbrook he goes, and well, here I think now it's all about trying to push for Druids, and if he can't do that, Lodge will be the final opportunity as they head in towards the right hand as the Druids are coming in towards turn number 10, and Pollard there just waiting in the wings, 4 tenths away, with Wes Delmont and Saunders also still contesting P4. As they come out to turn 10 down towards 11, 1 major corner to go, and Holmes looking comfortable here as he heads in towards the final major braking zone, and onto the anchors they go. The 8 racing car looking composed, and will Holmes, to be fair, after taking what was pole position, he's not flinched an inch as he makes his way to the line. Checker flag waves, and Lee Holmes will be your winner in race number 1 of the day here at Oulton Park, ahead of Chris Daines P2, Mikey Pollard P3, your prime winner, and then Adam Delmont and Reece Saunders P4, P5. It'll be Adam McNally P6 there ahead of Jamie Dory P7, and then after him it'll be Phil McDougall in P8, P2 in the prime class, holding off Ian Manners to the line, and Lee Horn completes the overall top 10 with P4 in the prime class ahead of Shane Pigg at P11, who's best of the rest. Michael Lee's P12, and then we've got a short order till Craig Jones P13 ahead of Gavin Gardner, with Darren Ills and Dan Skinner racing to the line, and then it is Mark Sykes P17 ahead of Roger Morton, the last finisher of this race, with our 2 retirements of Mark Cadwell P19 and Matthew Addy, who was not able to take to the grid. But one absolute thriller of a race number 1, no question about it. And will Chris Daines again, not quite able to bring home the win versus Lee Holmes, but I think he'll take that P2, and though he's got the pace to be winning it in race number 2. And Adam Delmont again right there waiting and watching, but not quite able to jump on Daines in this first race. But again, we've still got 2 more to go, and what could happen come the end of those. And meanwhile in the prime class, it was Mikey Pollard who had an emphatic win, but meanwhile Phil McDougall fighting hard for a P2, a well-deserved one, gaining 8 places since the start of the race overall and making that race pace count. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here they are. And Lee Holmes in the end, after our first 12 laps of racing here today in round 3 of the Front Wheel Drive Fridays Clio Cup, as brought to you by NXTGEN Racing on iRacing. Lee Holmes taking the win by 2 tenths at ATIP Racing over NXTGEN Racing's Chris Daines. A further half a second back, Mikey Pollard rounded off the overall podium and Pro-Am winner behind the 2 pros. And then Adam Delmont at P4 for NXTGEN Racing, completing the pro podium of Holmes, Daines and Delmont, with Reece Saunders just missing out for Team Year 1. But keep your eyes on Reece Saunders, looking incredibly fast under race conditions. And well, what can he do from what will be the 3rd row of the grid in race 2? NXTGEN Racing's Adam McNally at P6, ahead of teammate Jamie Dory, with Phil McDougall and Ian Manners P8, P9. The 6, our Project Black driver, just edging the DCW Racing Championship leader in the pro class. And therefore, it's a prime podium of Pollard, McDougall and Manners, with Lee Horn completing the top 10 for NXTGEN Racing and just missing out by 2 seconds on a prime podium. Shane Piggott best rest in PLM for Ace of Spades Racing in a good recovery effort after a difficult start to the race. Michael Lee's P12 for NXTGEN Racing ahead of result Chloe's Craig Jones, with then Gavin Garner for NXTGEN Racing Pink P14 and Darren Ills at P15 there for Ace of Spades. Mark Sykes P16, a difficult start to proceedings for him after that mistake at Cascade on lap number 1, but still plenty more racing for him. And then Roger Morton at P17 for result Clothing, with the final finisher of the day at Dan Skinner at P18 for NXTGEN Racing. And then we can see outside the top 18, retiring with 6 laps to go, Mark Cadwell there. He'll be classified as finished at the race, given the fact he completed half the distance. The privateer and Matthew Addy, did not start, not able to make it to the grid for NXTGEN Racing, but hopefully we'll see him on the grid for the 2nd race. Well, that was our first race of the round, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes or so for the build-up to race number 2. Another 12 laps will be on the card. How our drivers get on, well, don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to race number 2 of round 3 of the front-wheel drive Fridays Clio Cup, as brought to you by NXTGEN Racing. And what a way to start off the day with a qualifying session which saw a number of surprises up and down the field in the Pro and the Pro-Am classes, and then a race 1 to follow suit in a similar fashion, with the fact we saw a number of drivers really perform well and some charges through the field. And perhaps the most notable one in terms of charging through the field, Reece Saunders in the team at year 1 at 23, who found his way to finish inside the top 5 in the end, and definitely a man who seems to be on a mission to potentially take a win today, or at least be on the overall podium. It's not just about the Team Year 1 driver, albeit we have to give him a lot of credit for his performance in race number 1. We also did see a huge performance from Lee Holmes to hold on to the win, despite the pressure of Chris Daines and Adam Delmont, and also Mikey Pollard. And well, speaking of Mikey Pollard, what a performance from him to take the Pro-Am win, and also an overall 3rd place beyond the overall podium. And that is a huge achievement. We see a Pro-Am driver up there on the steps of the podium for the overall category. But Holmes definitely getting his bounce back in the championship, off to a good start here. And well, Adam Delmont, of course, not quite able to find a way past Daines, alternatively Holmes, and he'll know that now the battle for P2 in the championship and the right to chase down Daines is on between him and Holmes. But with less than a minute before we go out racing once again, we haven't got too long to go. And of course, the grid for race number 2 will be set based on how they finished in race number 1. And well, it's going to be a continuation of all the brilliant battling between our drivers. You can count on that, as we say hello there in the Twitch chat to Matrix4701, who says, I love these Clios, good luck all. And we're very happy to hear that, Matrix, and we're glad to have you join us this evening. Well, as our drivers get ready to go once more, we do see Craig Jones here as well, the result clothing driver, after what was a good start to the race, having an off which cost him very dear. But I think Jones will definitely be looking to make a recovery drive and get himself inside the top 10 overall if he can, to capitalise on the reverse grid for race at number 3. But we know he's got top 3 pace in the Pro-Am class at Oulton Park, and can he make that manifest here in the second race? Well, we're less than 15 seconds from head to the grid at 4 with his race number 2. We've got plenty to look forward to and find out. And once the checker flag comes out on this warm-up session, we are only moments away. As our drivers make their way onto the grid once again, we can't quite walk you through how they'll line up due to some technical limitations, but what we can do is look to the grid as they all begin to form up. And well, from the blimp camera there, wonderful view, seeing all the cars in splendour at long distance, all getting set to go racing. And well, as they all position on the grid, they're going to fill out quite rapidly. And good news, we do have Matthew Addy, who is on the grid. He'll be starting from last place, but still he'll be looking to try and make his way through the field as rapidly as possible, as they have got the car fixed. And well, now for Addy, it's all go, go, go from start to finish. But how many places can he gain from P20? That will be the challenge that confronts him. Meanwhile, at the front of the grid, Lee Holmes gets ready to go once more. And well, we can see that the 8 Tip Racing at 35 car, all set. Battling side by side it will be with Chris Daines off the line. And who out of the two of them will have the leading edge into the opening corner? All the field is on the grid. They're just being given the countdown now. And indeed, I think we have had the safety car just getting into position as well. The grid is set, we await the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for our second race of the day here at Oulton Park, as Lee Holmes gets a relatively good start. Chris Daines now building in the second stage. Launch, they make the way into turn number 1. But as they do, Adam Delmont defend on the inside versus Mikey Pollard. Keep your eyes on Pollard. He'll be looking to try and make it another overall podium, but Delmont's jumped ahead off the line. And as they make their way down towards Cascade, well, the top 2 are breaking away. The battle for P3 starting to build up behind as they all come on down the hill. And as they do, through the long sweeping run they go. Everybody so far, we've got drivers off out in the rear of the picture. And I think that's Mark Sykes has found his way to the wall once again. And Dan Skidder's taken a bit of a rallycross style approach to the opening corners, but he rejoins. But meanwhile, as we look back up the field into turn number 4, we can see Ian Manners there defending hard versus Lee Horn as they make their way out to turn number 4 and out towards 5-6. On the charge down they go, and as they do, Horn under pressure already to try and get a move on with Shane Piggott egging them on as they make their way to the break-in zone for his lofts. Now coming on down and around, well, as our drivers do, of course, we do bring the laps up on the top of the screen then rather than race time. And as they come through the right-hander of that turn in number 7 through Knickerbrook corner, it's now one-way line all the way up towards Druids as they power their way on through it. But you can see here in the long line of cars, they're already having a relatively calm start. One of the biggest gainers since the start of this race, though, Matthew Addy's moved upwards already 4 places to P16. Charging up the order is the Next Gen Racing 57 car. Well, of course, he's got a point to prove as the Sam Case's machine as he makes his way down towards turn number 11 in towards Lodge Corner, given the fact he wasn't able to make it to the grid for the first race of the day, so therefore he's got to try and make all the recovery time in a single race and get himself inside the top 10 to give himself the best opportunities in the next race. We see off circuit there, just in front, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, into the pit lane. And that's Michael Lees with damage to the car, so Lees has had to take an early pit stop. That's going to enable a lot of drivers to gain even more places, but after one lap, right now it's not settled down between Shane Piggott and Lee Horn. Piggott looking on the inside here versus Horn into tow, but has to back off there as Horn holds the position into Cascade, and the Ace of Spades racing driver trying to find an advantage as Horn goes a bit deep, and Piggott's going to look around the outside as Horn holds the inside run. Onto the brakes they both go, and as they come on down, well, Horn here defends as hard as he can, but Piggott in return goes simply for the cutback, and Horn out breaks himself into the corner and straight lines on, and it's as easy as that in terms of locking up on the brakes, particularly when they're only 1 or 2 laps into the race. They haven't quite got the temperature, but Shane Piggott in the end get Horn to make a mistake and making it count. But meanwhile, as they all come down into the braking zone, we look from the Hislops into Knickerbrook, and it's Lee Holmes who still leads, and he's leading by 8 tenths. They make their way towards the end of lap number 2 with Chris Daines in hot pursuit, and then Adam Delmont P3. It's the top 3 of pros, and then you have your prime leader of Mikey Pollard P4 as we see the DCW racing machine making its way in towards Druids. He's got Reece Saunders, Adam McNally chasing after him. That's your top 6, and then we do have a gap to Phil McDougall, your second place prime, P7 overall, as he makes his way around through Druids with Ian Manners just behind, and then Shane Piggott and Gavin Carter who complete your top 10 with Jamie Joy best the rest in P11. But as they head out towards the Lodge Corner this time, all the drivers right now settling into rhyme and rhythm, but meanwhile some drivers are not being given as much an opportunity to do so as others. And in particular, we look back here to Lee Horn, who's chasing after Mark Cadmore, and Cadmore of course picking up the places that others have dropped early on and making some gains of his own. Onto the brakes they go. Horn looks up the inside, and well, it does look so Cadmore there just simply taking his racing line and taking the speed to turn number 1. He has the tow as well of Skinner, and we're heading in towards that braking zone. Horn's going to go all in here to try and find the move, and I think he'll force it to happen as meanwhile Mark Cadwell backs it off slightly and just takes the natural run. But Lee Horn returns to P16, P8 to the Prime cars, but knowing there's a lot more places to be gained, and well, we're sorry to announce that Michael Lees has had to retire the car due to opening lap damage. The car has been in a state where it's not able to be repaired, and well, they'll try and get it repaired for the final race of the day. But meanwhile, speaking of one driver right now who's in a full state of charge and doesn't need repairing the result, Clover driver here, Roger Morton, well, he's got Matthew Addy right behind him. Well, here's a surprise for you. Matthew Addy already up into P13 from P20. He's gained with 7 places and still charging more as Morton here just simply trying to keep Addy at bay for now. And this is a battle for P4 in the Prime class, and really it's a bit of gatekeeping from Morton that he needs to do to try and keep Dory and Garner clear up the road, albeit, and that's more for his own aspirations for Morton to try and bring over top 4 in the Prime class. But I think if Addy can find the way through, he's got to do it quickly, because right now Dory and Garner are already, what is it, 4 seconds up the road, and then it's Shane Piggott before you finally get to another Prime driver in the form of Ian Manners, and that's where Addy wants to be. But as they come out of Wes turn at number 10 at Druids and down towards 11, a little bit of a wobble there on corner exit from Roger Morton, but that goes to show you how hard he's pushing as he heads on to the brakes here. No exchange at this time, but meanwhile we look from them up towards Phil McDougall, and you can see Ian Manners all over the back of McDougall in the battle for P2 in the Prime class. What is their P7 overall as they come through at turn number 1 and down towards 2-3 they go in the long charge through the depression. And as they come in towards Cascades, well, Airedy settles down once again in no real overtaking opportunity for Manners. He's not close enough to really try to put the pressure on McDougall into that corner. And Phil McDougall, of course, gaining the upper hand on Manners in the late stages of race number 1. Will we see the shoe on the other foot come the end of race number 2 here, given the fact that McDougall's been made to work hard, but it's a lock up there for Ian Manners. And well, as he does, Shane Piggott simply says, okay, I'll take it off you. And Shane Piggott gains another place, and Piggott is absolutely flying. And to be fair, whilst he may be capitalising on others' mistakes, the key thing is he's got to keep it on circuit, he's got to keep it at a high pace, and he's doing both that and being there to seize on when it goes wrong for others. And right now, Shane Piggott, the fastest man on circuit, if you exclude the fastest lap of the race, been set by Reece Saunders on the previous lap. But as they make their way out of Knickerbrook and up towards Druids, well, right now, these guys are starting to space out to a degree, but meanwhile, your leaders, I can tell you, are staying close together. It's 3 tenths between Lee Holmes and Chris Daines, and in fact, here is your leaders as they make their way up towards turn number 11, and as they power their way on down underneath the signage in towards Lodge Corner. Well, distant camera shot turns on around, and Lee Holmes here definitely feeling the heat as he goes a bit deep. They're coming out to the final major corner. Chris Daines, meanwhile, looking around the outside to inside into turn 1. It's going to be too wide on the charge here, but can Daines keep it alongside long enough? I think he can, and well, he's going to go for the move nice and early, and Daines up the inside, and I don't think Holmes is going to have a counter attack as Holmes there onto the grab on the bump in the grass, causes the car to wobble, and now Daines comes on through with Delmont also, Mikey Pollard and Reece Saunders, and it's Lee Holmes who drops all the way down to P5 with a mistake, just trying to carry too much speed, but it's not over yet in the battle for the lead, with Chris Daines down under pressure of Adam Delmont, and Delmont looking around the outside as they go on to the brakes here for the hairpin at turn number 4, and Daines just needs to keep it calm. He doesn't need to let the car go deep. A tap to the rear of the car from Adam Delmont as Delmont tries to go for the cutback, but Daines counters it and simply says, no, you're not going to any pace. And I wonder if Daines there is taking a note from the booklet that was deployed against him by Lee Holmes in race number 1. But Holmes just simply parked on apex at turn number 4 and said, well, if you want the run, you're not going to have it. But as they make their way through Hislops in towards Knickerbrook Corner, we ride aboard the rear here of Daines' car. And you can definitely see right now as they head up towards what is at turn number 10 at Druids Bend. The drivers absolutely pushing as hard as they might, but it is Delmont who is looking to try and find that slight edge as they head in towards the turn 10 double right apex corner, and will off the corner they'll go, and will it be Delmont who gets a bit more of a closing advantage? Not quite. They're equal as they head out to the corner and down towards turn number 11. Onto the brakes they go. Mikey Pollard just behind, and will the Pro-Am leader back into P3 once more, finds himself back in the overall podium fight as they head on towards what is lap number 6. Now, of course, in running at this intensity, the one thing that leader Chris Daines cannot do is start to afford any time to really conserve the tyres. And this is what Delmont will be wanting. He'll want to try and put Daines under pressure where he can potentially lock up or just take some excess life out of the car before he gets to the closing stages of the race. Meanwhile, let's not count at Reece Saunders as we see the Team Year 1 drive closed up on Pollard for an overall podium. In fact, Pollard goes a little bit deep, going through Cascades, and as they head out towards the island hairpin, well, it's going to be closed. Saunders looking up the inside, and Pollard firmly says the door is shut. And as they head into the braking zone, Pollard defends, locks up, goes deep, and Saunders cuts it back just in time. Lee Holmes looks to run off the corner as well. He can't quite find it, but there, Pollard being lulled into a mistake, and as a result, Reece Saunders out to P3 as they head out towards what is the goodness me, the Hislops chicane, and as they head on the back straight now, can Saunders find his way into that top 2 fight? That will be his next change. If he can, well, that could be an absolute spectacle for our eyes to behold on the closing stage of this race. But as they make their way out to Knickerbrook, meanwhile, we look further back to Gavin Gardner, who right now chasing after what is there, Phil McDougall in the battle for P8. Well, of course, it's the Pro chasing after the Pro, and McDougall started to break away from Gardner and Manners, respectively, and as they head up towards what is at Druids Bend here. Well, in fact, I can confirm it. In fact, it's Gavin Gardner who's found his way past Manners recently. So Gardner's trying to recover and go hunting after Piggott next time with McDougall, given the fact that he has got the Pro drive between himself and his Pro pride. But as they head in towards the Lodge this time around, Gardner not able to find the move. Instead, just having to wait his turn as they head up towards turn at number 1. But speaking of turn 1, we're side by side here for Daines versus Delmont into the opening corner. And as they do, well, it's the 2Ds battling as they make their way down towards turn number 3, and well, Daines will be defending on the outside to inside into Cascades. Delmont try and go all the way around, and Daines trying to get the elbows out there slightly just to make it harder for Delmont to carry speed off corner. Of course, Daines on a compromised line, but he holds the position quite firmly as they head down towards the turn 4 hairpin. Now, will Delmont go all in here? Look at Reece Saunders as well. Saunders closing at a massive rate of knots as we jump on board here with the Team Year 1 driver. A small bit of contact there between Delmont and Daines. The two of them definitely getting frisky with one another. And I think Delmont here worried about the fact he's got to get a hurry up on, as otherwise Saunders might be trying to come through for P2. And that could just buy Daines enough of breathing room to make sure he's able to hold on to the win. But as they come on through Hislops and in towards Knickerbrook, you can see here in terms of the body language of the car, bit of panic there for Daines. Meanwhile, for Delmont, really having to push the car Me off the Saunders, it almost looks as though it's flying water and just simply staying there right in the hunt. We've also got Mikey Pollard 2 tenths behind, and Pollard looking for a potential run back onto the overall podium. I think Saunders will make it very clear to him if he hasn't already in terms of defending. Look, we're battling for a pro podium here just as much as the overall podium. Don't get in my way as they make their way up towards Lodge. Coming down into the braking zone. Meanwhile, we're hearing off camera Mark Cadwell's had a bit of an incident. He's dropped from P17 to P18. I believe it's an off track for him as Darren Hills has moved up from P17. As the drives head on towards the timeline, they go to lap number 8. Still plenty of laps to go as Saunders here just waiting but not close enough to try and make things happen. Meanwhile, further back in the battle to Lodge corner, we see here Jones versus what is their Skinner. Skinner up the inside of Jones. They come through. Lodge and onwards towards another lap. It's going to get very tense here as they come through the kink at 12. And well, I think the two next-gen racing machines of Skinner and Horn are trying to essentially squeeze Jones onto an outside line. You see that Skinner trying to open the door for Horn. Horn's got to run on the inside, but it's not enough of an overlap. And Jones just simply says you're going to need more than that if you want to come on through. And now settles back to his racing line. But the result, Clothing driver, he doesn't know which way to turn. He's either got to attack or defend, or he can't do both. And as they come down through Cascades, with Jones looking around the outside for P6 of the Prime Class on Skinner. What is their P14 overall? But again, not quite the run out of Cascades. Now Horn's going to try and go around the outside in the toe of Skinner as they head up towards the braking zone for turn number 4. And it's Horn who gets it done there, moves up to P15. As Jones loses one place, he'll know he's still got plenty of opportunities to try and come back for the move, given the fact that these three are so close on pace from corner to corner and lap to lap of this race. But as they head out towards his lots, they'll take a brief breather for the time. But meanwhile, there's no time to breathe for us here at the commentary booth because things are intensifying again between what is there, Shane Pickett, Phil McDougall and Gavin Gardner. And particularly Gardner in this battle for P8 versus McDougall, trying to come through so that way he can hunt down P7 and pro position P6 in the hands of Shane Pickett. But as they head out towards Lodge, again, just no way through for Gardner. He takes a sniffer move. He thinks about trying to force the issue into Lodge, but it's not the right time to do it. He will need to wait until the last couple of laps until he starts to make what we call those do or die moves. But meanwhile, as he makes his way in towards the opening corner, he's had the better run through the kick and coming on towards turn number 1. I think here it may be a formality as McDougall gives him all the space in the world to play with. And what in the end, I think that the 6R Project Black driver deciding to surrender the position and go, okay, you've got me fair and square, and I need to worry about Ian Manners, who's now 1.2 seconds back instead. But meanwhile, we look back here to Skinner versus Horn, and well, the two next-gen racing drivers, they work together to find a way past Jones, but now they're no longer working together as they try to find a way past one another. As we almost mince our words, they head down towards Cascades. Look at Jones, meanwhile, looking up the inside, as meanwhile, it's going to be Horn on the outside as they come on out of the left-hander, and now down towards the hairpin they go, and nothing between them here. Skinner holds the position, but meanwhile, coming on through his lots up the road, Delmont defending hard here versus Reece Saunders, and Saunders all over the back of Delmont as they make their way out of Knickerbrook corner. And well, this is going to lead to a long line, and Daines has already gained almost a second as a result of that brief battle between them. And you can see now Pollard under pressure from Holmes behind, and Lee Holmes still trying to get back up a place. He wants to be P4 so that way he can go hunting after the pro podium at the very end of the overall podium as well. Basil tries head down towards Lodge corner, onto the brakes, they'll shortly go, and Saunders here having to defend a little bit more rather than go on the offensive. Well, he made one move, didn't quite work out versus Delmont. He'll take that information to the piggy bank of knowledge, and as they make their way up towards turn number 1 now, well, can Saunders get close again, or was that his lot? And down does he have to go more and more defensive? It looks like, in fact, Saunders may not be able to get the edge as they come through turn number 1, but we can't quite write him off just yet, as meanwhile Daines there having a full run through the opening quarter, 3 tenths down on the exit, now coming into Cascades. Well, Daines here definitely, I think, just trying to keep the car on the straight and narrow to the end, but he has not got the tyre life to be able to keep pushing it that hard for the remainder. We've still got 3 laps, including the one they're on, so this could definitely be a very close finish here for the overall win, let alone overall P2. But as they all come down, Lee Holmes out, breaks himself into the hairpin, McNally closes up, but he's not there to capitalise in time, and will the top 6 stay as they are as they head down the back straight. But meanwhile, looking from them back to Lee Horn, we can see as they make the way out to turn number 3 and down towards 4. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, mainly a cough just briefly. As they make the way down towards turn number 4, Horn's going to go a little bit deep, and Skinner coming out to the right hand there, side by side they go, but Horn bringing it back to you, just collecting the car in time as they head up towards his lops. And meanwhile, behind him, Craig Jones just having to wait and watch, just not able to get close enough to try and put the move on. And well, for the result, Clothing Driver, I wonder what's next in terms of where could he find the move. I think it's got to be when Skinner and Horn try to make moves with one another, and he's just got to be closer under braking. He needs to be within 3 attempts there so he can seize when the door is open. If not, he may just have to wait for the remainder. But meanwhile, as they head up towards Druids Bend, you see a line of stern for the trio once again. And we'll further back, we do look to Darren Hills as he comes on through Druids as well. P16, it's the Ace of Spades racing driver, as he's recently passed Roger Morton, and Mark Cadwell giving pursuit to Morton as they come on through and down towards turn 11 at Lodge they go. We're pounding their way on through onto what will be the penultimate lap. Well, meanwhile, we look from them back to your race leader, and Chris Daines still under pressure as we jump aboard the gearbox here, and that's Adam Delmont. You can see the delta and how much he's closed up. 7 tenths he's gained over the previous lap, and as they head the way onto the brakes here for the turn 4 hairpin, well, what's Delmont going to try and do an exit? I don't think he's going to try anything here, given the fact that Daines gets a good run off the corner, and they are going to stay as per the status quo. Heading down the back stretch, of course, for Daines. He'll be mindful of the fact that Delmont now is well within attacking distance should he make even the slightest of errors, or Delmont just sinks the lap up perfectly. But as they come out of his stops and into Knickerbrook through the right-hander, and well, Mikey Pollard P4 there, you can see just behind Moise Reece Saunders. Saunders still a threat to Delmont, and Delmont will have that in the back of his mind that he does have to look backwards a little bit just as much as he has to look forward from lap to lap and corner to corner as they come into Druids Bend. What's interesting with regards to the approach to Druids Bend there from Daines, goes a little bit deeper into the corner compared to Delmont, and that's what's giving Delmont the run, enabling him to gain a 10th there. And Daines has got to be wary of the fact that Delmont just seems to be able to hook up those apexes a little bit more aggressively as they make the way onto the final lap here. But it's Daines who leads. One more lap to be turned at Oulton Park Island as they head down towards the opening corner. White flag is out, and who's going to be your winner in race number 2? Will it be Daines, Delmont, Saunders, or will it be Pollard, Holmes and McNally, who are all there just a little bit off? Indeed, a top 6 that's ever so close together as they make the way down towards the braking zone. But meanwhile, Phil McDougall defending hard versus Ian Manners in the battle for P2 in the Pro class. What is P9? So this is not over yet. In fact, Manners is going to try and look around the outside into Cascades as they come on down. So it's all exploded into life. McDougall defending here, keeping it calm, keeping it collected. That's what you need at Cascades. Just run the car on the racing line, and now down towards the hairpin. Well, Manners is going to have to pull off the mother of all cutbacks or dummies if he wants to get this done. McDougall just needs to simply nail his braking point and nothing more beyond that. And then McDougall get it hooked up there precisely as he needs to, as now it's going to be Manners who finds himself on the back foot. But meanwhile, we look back to the leaders as they come on through what is there, the Hislop chicane, and up towards Druids Bend they charge. And well, as the next gen racing driver of Daines does everything to hold on. It's 3 tenths. We've seen this before. We're seeing it again in terms of Delmont versus Daines, and we love it. But I think Daines may just have an edge unless he makes an error. But the one thing Daines does not do is make errors. And as he comes down towards Lodge Corner, we can see Delmont having to defend more from Saunders. And as they head into the braking zone, I think Daines will have this covered off, as Delmont in fact having to hold Saunders at bay. Saunders are looking for the cutback as they come out the corner, but as they power the way to the timing line, it's going to be Daines. It's only been a brief hiatus in the top step, but he returns to take the race win in race number 2 ahead of Delmont and Saunders P3, Mikey Pollard P4 with the prime win there for the DCW racing driver, and it's Leon's P5 ahead of Adam McNally P6, and then it will be very shortly Shane Piggott P7 ahead of Gavin Carter P8. Phil McDougall holds off Ian Manners to the checker flag to make it P2 in the prime class, P9 overall for CXR Project Black with the DCW racing driver just behind him, and then Jamie Dory best the rest there in P11 ahead of Matthew Addy, Lee Horn and Dan Skinner as they all come through P12 through to P14. It'll be Roger Morton at P15 as he crosses the line there ahead of Mark Cadmore, who just beats Craig Jones to the line. And then at Darren Hills at P18, and then it will very shortly be Mark Sykes who will be your last finisher, as it does seem to be a bit of an error there for Roger Morton getting it wrong. But meanwhile, Mark Sykes P19, and across the line there for Next Gen Racing in the 666 car. 20 started. We had one retiree of Michael Lees after the open lap with damage to the car, but my goodness, what a thriller for race number 2. And well, these are typical, the stars of Laguna Seca. They are back in full force. Daines versus versus Delmont, but with them in tow was Reece Saunders, Mikey Pollard, Lee Holmes and Adam Manali. We have got 6 drivers who could potentially win each race, and well, of course now we do have the top 10 at reverse grid race to come. So Daines will know he's starting P10 with Delmont P9, and I think we are going to see some fireworks come the end of race 3. Indeed, it could be very close between them, but as we see there, Daines exploring the track limits a little bit and making contact with the wall as a result, and Delmont as well drifted on through. Well, let's take a look at those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. Well, after another 20 minutes of racing, or 12 laps if you will, at Oulton Park Island Circuit in the front-wheel drive Fridays Clio Cup Round 3, Chris Daines takes the win in race number 2 by then almost 0.6 of a second for NXTGEN Racing over his teammate and arch rival Adam Delmont. Reece Saunders P3 for team at year 1 and a brilliant drive to P3 there on the podium for the first time this season, if my memory serves me correctly. And then Mikey Pollard finishing behind the trio of pro drivers. Of course, that's your overall podium and also your pro podium. And Mikey Pollard, your pro and winner, fighting hard for a P4 for DCW Racing. Lee Holmes just behind for 88 Racing at P5, looking very fast, but a couple of lockups costing him dear, with Adam McNally P6 for NXTGEN Racing, and then a 3-second gap to Shane Pigg at P7 for Ace of Spades Racing. Again, one to watch out for in race number 3, given the fact that he'll be starting on what will be the 3rd ride of the grid and looking to charge from P5, and it'll be Gavin Garner at P8 there for NXTGEN Racing, ahead of Phil McDougall and Ian Manners, who round off your top 10, and of course the pair concluding the prime podium of Pollard, McDougall and Manners, with the CXR Project Black and DCW Racing drivers enjoying a brilliant battle for the runner-up spot in class. Jamie Dory, best rest in P11 for NXTGEN Racing, just missing out on the reverse grid pole, with Matthew Addy P12 for NXTGEN Racing, and starting on the back of the field, a P12 finish. He'll be pleased with that. It's P4 as well in class, and then we can see ahead of his NXTGEN Racing teammates and peers, Lee Horn and Dan Skinner, with result clubs Roger Morton P15, Mark Cadwell P16, and a good result for the privateer. As we come down the order, Craig Jones P70 result clothing, not quite able to hook it up this race, but ahead of Darren Ilse Ace of Spades Racing, and then Mark Sykes, the final finisher on the lead lap in P19 for NXTGEN Racing, ahead of teammate Michael Lees, and of course Michael Lees retiring after the opening lap due to damage sustained in the opening lap contact. But still, congratulations to all of our drivers for their performances in race number 2, but we're not quite done yet, ladies and gentlemen. We've got race number 3 coming up very shortly, and well, with a top 10 inverted grid, it is definitely going to be a thriller. Will it be Daines who potentially takes another win, or will we see Lee Holmes back on the top step? Could we see Adam Delmont take another win in the series, or could it be a whole new name overall? Time will tell, but of course we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes time to find out all that and more. Don't go anywhere. Race 3 is coming up very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the final race of the day. Race 3 of 3 here at Oulton Park Island Layout. And indeed, what a brilliant pair of races we've had so far. We've had plenty of battles and surprises across both races, but in race number 2 in particular, it was a six-way fight for the win, but it was Chris Daines who would bring on home the win in the end in the pro and overall categories, with Mikey Pollard's P4 seeing him take the prime win as well. And as we get ready to go racing at one last time today, of course the question will be, will we see repeat winners or will we see a new name at the very top? And this is the name that we're looking at, most importantly, Rhys Saunders in the 23, the Team Year 1 driver who definitely has shown the fangs in race number 2, wanting to be on the podium and also potentially for the win, but can he find a way to navigate his way on through? Of course, what changes things up in race number 3 is we have the top 10 inversion, which will put Saunders ahead of the likes of Delmont and Daines, but will he be able to stay ahead, or will he find himself battling side by side with them early on? That'll be the thing that is on his mind. Now, as you can see at the top of the screen, it will say that we do have approximately 6 minutes before we go into what is the race, but that is in error. We are approximately 2 to 3 minutes away, if not a little bit sooner. So whilst the drivers are getting set, we do take a look again to the respective broadcast chats, including the Facebook chat, and we say hello to Baz Meacham. And good evening to you, Baz. I hope you're doing well, and saying great racing tonight, and come on at Daines, cheering on at Chris Daines. Indeed, a good number of you there cheering on a whole variety of drivers. We've got quite a few fans of Chris Daines, also with regards to what is Adam Delmont as well, and also I do believe we may have some fans of the DCW racing outfit that does include Ian Manners and his colleagues, including also Mikey Pollard. But whoever you support, of course, it's great to have so many of you tuning in tonight here in this post-round broadcast. And indeed, for the maiden season, the front wheel drive Fridays using the new Renault Clio Cup added to iRacing, the 5th generation car. Well, he is going from strength to strength, and I can tell you right now, with a field of 20 drivers from round to round, it's definitely proving potent. But as our drivers get themselves set, of course, still a bit more time to trickle on down. And well, for Lee Holmes, and particularly the ATEC racing driver here, after his winning race number 1, not quite able to match that, or at least finish on the podium in race number 2, with a lockup costing very dear. But I think the number 35 driver will look to make amends and know that he has an opportunity to fight hard with Rhys Saunders and potentially get into the lead earlier than most. But of course, there will be some names who jump to the front of the field, and they'll be looking to try and bring on home an overall podium, if not an overall win. And we're taking a good number of prime drivers, including Ian Manners and Phil McDougall. And how will they negotiate the change that's put in front of course, that'll be on their minds, as we see Adam Delmont here making his way up towards Druids Bend. The NXTGEN racing driver in the 37. Well, I think he's going to feel assured that there's going to be plenty of battling, and he does enjoy these races where he's going through the field as rapidly as possible. Does Delmont in the reverse grid, and indeed, speaking to a good number of drivers down in the paddock, they enjoy the reverse grid, that partial reverse grid, because it means it changes the dynamic of the race. And of course, they don't mind being up front. There's nothing wrong with that, but they then have to find their way through the field as quickly as possible in race number 3, because otherwise the drivers who start towards the front normally get given an opportunity to break away nice and early, unless they fight one another, and then, well, by the time the likes of Delmont and Daines have picked their way through the field, they find themselves suddenly not with enough time to go hunting after the race winner. So that's why the reverse grid always does add a little bit of complexity to the racing. But I can tell you now, we're going to have to decipher all that complexity and more as the checkered flag is out on this warm-up session. It's time to head to the grid for our final race. So our drivers make their way onto the grid. Of course, we can't quite take you through the grid order, but what we can do is look to our drivers as they all get themselves set on the grid. And well, it is going to be another absolutely ram-packed grid. There's no doubt about it. 19 drivers making it back for the final race today. For 18 drivers, we should confirm. So we do seem to have lost 2 along the way, but we do have all the big names from race number 2 up there. And well, started on pole, it will be Ian Manners, with Phil McDougall joining him on the front row. And they're the 2 to watch out for, the 2 prime drivers. Now, will they fight hard, or will they try to work together and break away? Because, of course, they do have plenty of company behind them, all itching to go, including Willis Garangada, who you can see they're starting behind Manners. Well, the grid is practically set. We're just waiting for the safety car to get into position, but it will be lights out of the way within the next minute and a half. As we do, just quickly sneak in a glass of water. It's time for the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the final race of the day. Another 12 laps, charging down to turn one they go. And as they do, Manners right now under pressure from McDougall nice and early. As McDougall goes to the move, but Manners will try and hold it round the outside. Gavin Gardner also tries to get to the mix here as he looks in the middle of the two of them. It's almost 3 wide at one point, but in the end, Manners pulls ahead of McDougall and Gardner around the outside as they come into the kick. Into Cascades they go. It's contact between Manners and McDougall, and immediately McDougall taken to the wall as Manners there runs off circuit, and Gavin Gardner will be given every opportunity as it seems to be a bit of a medley coming out of Cascades. 3 wide, further back, almost 4 wide there as Holmes in contact with, I think, Chris Daines behind as they come onto the brakes, but Manners and McNally all the way down into turn number 4, and as they come through, we've got more cars off. That is, I believe, Jamie Dory, and we've had one car that's sent very wide. Chris Daines in contact there with Reece Saunders. Well, Saunders being caught up as they tried to get the cars turned, but McDougall will bring himself back together. Mark Sykes having a difficult start once again. Mark Cadwell not making it to the grid, unfortunately, due to technical issues, but as our drives come through, in fact, I believe he was able to make it to the grid, but there's been an issue with the cars. They've launched off the line. Shane Piggott's coming through there versus Manners, but Gavin Gardner, your race leader, by 2 seconds, they heading towards Druids. Well, this is not the way we expected it to play out at all, and as they come charging on through the kinks here, Piggott has a major opportunity to go hunting after the win, given the fact he's shown so much pace in race number 1, and now he's got clear track in front of him if he can stay clear of what's behind. As we see there, a slide, I think, for Jamie Dory coming out of Druids Bend. Is that a slide of some damage on the car that's making it a little bit unstable? We'll cover it on through at Lodge and down here to the Deer Leave. It is going to be as they head on to lap number 2. Gavin Gardner, who leads by a margin of 2 seconds ahead of Shane Piggott P2. Ian as your program leader P3, ahead of Adam McNally P4, Adam Delmont P5, Lee Holmes P6, Jamie Dory P7, and it's going to be Lee Horn battling with Mikey Pollard for P8, P9, followed on the offensive here with Dan Skinner P10 and Matthew Addy P11, best of the rest as they carry the way onto the second lap. And coming on down the hill, in fact, I do believe we have had the safety car make its way out onto circuit, ladies and gentlemen, and that may explain why the field has slowed down to a degree. So safety car has been deployed, and well, that's going to give an opportunity for the field to come together, and the safety car has been deployed due to the high attrition rate on the opening lap, and it will bunch the field back up and also give an opportunity for those drivers with wounded cars in order to be able to go racing it once again, albeit we'll have to wait to see how long we are under safety car conditions. But as we do see there, the Porsche Cayman GT4 safety car made its way up to speed with Gavin Gardner hugging the rear of it, and I think he just wants to go racing once again. He'll feel absolutely wounded here in the fact it was a near perfect start for the NXTGEN racing driver, and now all that advantage he's gained has been neutralised as Shane Piggott gives himself plenty of room, and I think the Ace of Spades racing driver trying to give himself the room, so when he knows the safety car's coming in, he can then go hammer and tongs with regards to really getting close, heating up the tyres, heating up the brakes, and getting the kind of the prime position. And this is a very awkward part of the race because the safety cars come out after the opening lap. Now this may sound a bit odd. Why would this be awkward for our drivers? Well, keep in mind, as we said earlier on in today's broadcast, the car's really in its operating window after lap 2. So when it goes on to lap 3, that's when the brakes and tyres are fully up to temperature and you can start to attack. After lap 1, you started to put a lot of heat into the tyres and also into the brakes. And now on lap 2 with the safety car, all that heat is just going to go. So it's effectively a reset of the car going on to when we go racing once again. But of course, the longer we spend behind the safety car, the more temperature is taken out of the car. And therefore, it means the tyres are likely to last the end of the race without having to worry about the front end wear drop off. But at the same time, this is not where you want to be, because for everybody, when we go green flag racing, and it won't be at the end of lap 2, it may potentially be at the end of lap 3, given the field's almost bunched back up together already. We're just waiting for Reece Saunders to catch up to the rear of the field. But what it means for Gavin Gardner, he is going to go into unknown territory. He will be the leader who charges into the opening corner and has to try and negotiate it with tyres that have gone through one whole thermal cycle, and therefore they've got to be heated up once again. And meanwhile, Shane Piggott will be able to react behind and just take it a bit more smoothly. So that is the challenge for him. And Ian Manners, meanwhile, will P3. But of course, there was that contact between himself and Phil McDougall. I think that will be looming on his mind in terms of the two of them coming into elbow contact, coming down through Cascades. And McDougall coming off the worst. But speaking of Phil McDougall, here he is P13. And he'll be looking to try and come through the field as quickly as he possibly can. And with the CXR Project Black driver now, I think he'll be all guns blazing. As the proverb says, with regards to just trying to make moves, he's got a lot of pace to be able to do so. But he has got some tricky opponents to find his way past, including what is Craig Jones and Matthew Addy in front. Both drivers not quite on the pace of McDougall, but they have come close to that pace over the races. And also we need to look a little bit further back, and here's Chris Daines and Reece Saunders, and both of them well out of position after the incident at turn number 4. We're not quite sure what set it off, But what we can tell you is that they've been victims of contact at the hairpin on the opening lap, and now they have to try and cut their way on through. We have had one retirement in the form of Mark Cadmore, but out of 18 starters, we've still got 17 running, and the safety car is being called in at the end of this lap. So it will be for Gareth Gardner to dictate the pace when we go green flag racing. He does, of course, have to let the safety car get a good distance, so that way it's able to be clear of the field when the field comes around to go at green flag racing. But as we do bring up the dashboard there, we'll keep track of his speed and see when he's ready to go. Well, no sign of going just yet. Safety car is in the pit lane, so Garner keeping the field at bay down towards Lodge. He's going to try and keep this as long as possible, and I think he'll spring out of Lodge corner as he makes his way through the bend. And will he go on corner exit? No, Garner continues to wait here. He's going to make this last as long as possible. And finally, he starts to go races. He builds up the speed. We're green flag racing once again, ladies and gentlemen. And as our drivers charge their way down towards turn number 1, where it's going to be battling a plenty further back as Jamie Dory looking for the move on Lee Holmes. And meanwhile, Dan Skinner trying to cover off Lee Horn behind as they come through 1. And Horn almost getting it wrong there with cold tyres as he comes on through and out towards turn number 2. But as they come on down now, air when he settles back into a rhythm, including Mikey Pollard. And Pollard just simply staying in P10 at the moment, the DCW Racing driver, not looking to gain or lose, simply trying to keep its goal as they head up towards the braking zone for turn number 4. But looking to the front of the field here, you can see it's going to be Delmont on the inside of Anderson. McNally is turned round, and the field goes around the sideways 478, but everyone comes in. And I think they're all going to negotiating in the end, but McNally definitely taking 2 big hits and a nasty hit for Lee Holmes as well. And this is going to cause the field now to go 2 by 2 down the back straight and in to Hislop chicane. Horn there defending versus Lee Holmes, and as they come on through, no change at the moment between them, but Lee Horn finds himself now in P5 overall. And I think the NXTGEN Racing driver, when he gets an update to say he's in P5, he'll try and clasp it with both hands and hold on to it for the remainder of the race. But we are hearing that Adam McNally having further complications with the car, and in fact it is a retirement for Adam McNally too. The pit lane is being towed over, then he can get it repaired, but I'm not thinking it's going to be too realistic given the damage he's picked up. We'll have to wait and see. But meanwhile, as I try to charge on through, it's a mid-pack that's absolutely battling hard here. But as we can see, Jamie Dury trying to pick his way back past Mikey Pollard, and we are coming to the end of lap number 4 of 12. Definitely, we may have been denied a couple of laps of racing, but I can tell you, since we got it back to green flag racing, it's exploded back onto our screens once again as Gareth Gardner leads into lap number 5, and we see Shane Pickett and Ian Manners ahead of them with what is then Adam Delmont and Lee Horn, followed up by the combination of Lee Holmes, Mikey Pollard and Jamie Dory, who is your focus. But meanwhile, speaking of Lee Horn and Holmes, as they make the way down the hill, we've got side by side between them. Holmes comes on through. Meanwhile, Delmont's found his way past Ian Manners for P3 in the run into Cascade. So now Delmont being unleashed to chase down the top 2. So Delmont's going to have plenty of time to go for this. But meanwhile, further behind, we've still got Dan Skinner battling side by side with Jamie Dory under braking in to the turn 4 hairpin. A lot of brake lockups here. Drives are really struggling with that front right brake temperature into the hairpin. I think that's where they've had to go through that thermal cycle in the safety car period. And now Skinner, we're still battling with Dory, but Dory has got ahead in the run down the back stretch. And as they head in towards Hislop, I think this is going to be a formality for Dory now to get the move done. And there it is as Dan Skinner falls back to P9. Matthew Addy, meanwhile, still waiting in the wings, P10, with what is Craig Jones a little bit further behind him in P11. And these guys are all pushing on for what is the battle for P4 in the Pro class to try and take the place of Dan Skinner as they head in towards Druid's Bend. But I don't think there's going to be a wait at the moment. I think it will be, if it's going to happen, it'll be its turn number 1 on the next lap. But then again, Skinner not shy about getting a good lap together at Oulton Park. Indeed, Skinner on his debut, enjoying the racing, and I think we can expect plenty more from him as this season continues to play out as Addy comes down through at Lodge Bend. No movement there, and Craig Jones in fact getting a slightly better run as we jump aboard with the result clothing driver as he heads across the timeline and in to the next lap. Now coming into the right hand, Jones of course looking very threatening on these medium speed apexes over the lap. He goes a little bit deep there but keeps it in track limits. A lot of drives running quite deep. They've got to be careful, of course. They do it too many times, and well, they could end up with what is a time penalty post-race. But as Jones makes his way down through turn number 3 at Cascades, we can see there, well, Skinner having a full run off the corner. Meanwhile, it's going to be Jones and Addy who both pick up a good run. Addy's going to look around the outside of Skinner as they come down under braking. This is going to be a bit tense between them as we hit the Mark Swanks to go into the pit lane with a technical issue on the car. Well, Jones there not able to find his way through, and Skinner in return keeping Addy at bay for now. But Addy again looking for a move here as they make their way to his lots. And Addy, I think, will need to go all in here if he wants to get it done. He tries to, it's a 50-50, but in the end, Addy just not able to find enough of an overlap to force the door fully open. And as they come through the right hand here at turn number 7, Nickelbrook corner, they stay as they were. Meanwhile, just up the road, we can see that Lee Horn under huge pressure from Mikey Pollard. And Pollard, the fastest prime of the day. Given the fact he's picked up 2 prime wins out of 2, he's trying to make it a third. Well, it's going to be Lee Horn who's P2 in the class at the moment, and Ian Manners a bit further up the road. Albeit I don't think Pollard will complain too much. It's another DCW racing car that's leading the prime class. Albeit there's no team's championship, but he'd rather it go to a teammate rather than the driver of another outfit. And as they make the way out of Lodge Bend and up towards the timeline on to lap 7 into the second half of the race, and Pollard all on the offensive here as they head onwards towards turn number 1 once more and charge it on down. No way through it would seem at this time, but as we ride on board the nose here of the DCW racing car, new camera angle available to us, which is a good run there from Pollard, and he's going to go all in as they come down through the Kinker 2 into the braking zone for 3, and it's going to be a return from Horn. Horn still there, Pollard trying to go all the way around the outside. It's a nice run from Pollard, but has he got enough speed on quarter exit? I think he has, as Horn does drop to a 10th behind. He started to lose the nose, and as they head up towards turn number 4 now into the braking zone, where it's going to be Dory now tries to force the door back open for himself to try and take off of Horn when it's P7 side by side on quarter exit. Dory being the opportunist as they head down the back straight. And this is going to buy breathing room to Pollard, who moves up to half a second away. But Dory's still there, looking for the move on the inside under braking. Nothing between the two of them for now, but Horn defends hard. The overcooks it there at turn number 6 as they come into the corner. Dory's trying to go around the outside. It's very bold to do this at the best of times as he comes on through Jamie. Dory does get it hooked up, and Lee Horn is not done yet in terms of losing places. I think Dan Skinner now wants to try and get on the proverbial bus as they make the way in towards turn number 10 to Druid's corner. But Horn and Skinner there too wide on corner entry, but in the end here's Dan Skinner who finds his way through and moves up to P8. But then further back into the same corner, we've got Reece Saunders up the inside of Roger Morton and gets the move done there, the Team Year 1 driver, to make another place versus Morton. And Morton now down to P14 as a result, with Phil McDougall gradually trying to close. But as they make the way in towards Lodge Bend, we look back to Lee Horn, battling now with Matthew Addy, and Horn's pain is not done yet in terms of what's being administered to him as he drops down to P10 now, the next gen racing driver. After it passes, oh goodness me, and Skinner gets it wrong. It's a knock to the wall there coming on through, and Skinner trying to return to the circuit as gradually as he can, albeit trying to wrestle the car under control. But Leon regains 1 place after losing effectively what was 4 place in the course of a single lap. But as they make the way out to Cascade, Horn still there, and meanwhile Matthew Addy falling back behind Skinner, and I think Lee Horn there being able to seize on Skinner's difficulties, and Skinner tries as hard as he might to hold the outside versus Addy, but there's only really one way through there at the hairpin, albeit we would think that, but I think Skinner's going to prove us wrong here as Addy on the inside down towards Hinslops. It's going to be Skinner on the outside, both of them on the brakes here, and in the end it is what is Skinner who gets the move done. Well, bold defended there from Skinner, a nice move, and as we ride on board what is the gearbox of his car very shortly, there is the bumper of the Sam Case's Next Gen Racing Clio, in fact getting a bit too close to my camera there as they make the way out of what is the Kink of 8 and out towards turn number 10. As they headed towards the braking zone for Druid's Bend, through the right hander they go. Nothing between them so far, and Addy knowing he can try and make the move, but Skinner digging in his teeth here in terms of trying to make the move stick and also go hunting after Horn. But I think Addy's got other ideas in this battle, and this is for P3 of the Prime class, which is a huge potential point score here as Addy goes deep and largely releases not just Skinner but also Jones, and Craig Jones moves up into P5 and class P10. Skinner to P4. Now Lee Horn will not have an opportunity to use Addy as a little bit of a buffer as they make the way into turn 1 once more. But coming on through, we look from them as we can see both Skinner and Jones going deep. Skinner taking plenty plenty of exit curve and then some. I think Skidder there now really pushing the limits as much as he can. Meanwhile, Horn just keeping it on the straight and narrow, but further up the road here is your prime leader of Ian Manners, and whilst Pollard is trying to close, of course, Manners here trying to deal with the fact he's got Lee Holmes close behind. And Holmes trying to find another place in this race to go hunting after the top three. As you can see right now, the top five all making their way through the singular camera shot. But we focus here on Manners with ECW Racing. He's got the 88 Tech car of Holmes looking for a move into his slots, but he can't quite find it. In fact, they stay as they were for now as they come out of the chicane and in towards Knickerbrook Corner, and up the hill they go. Well, for Manners, it's all about just simply keeping his cool. And I think if he can't hold on to P4 without losing a lot of time, then he'll simply release the position and give Holmes an opportunity to run off, because for Manners, of course, it's points means prizes in the prime class here, and Manners will pick up a good number of points. If he's able to bring home this win, it'll bring him back into what is an advantageous situation with regards to that championship lead. But Holmes here looking up the inside again into Lodge, still not quite close enough to be able to fully commit to the move. He's about 90% there, but the final 10% is eluding him. As meanwhile, Gavin Gardner goes on to lap number 10, free to go for the NXTGEN Racing driver, and the pink machine continues to run on the lead, albeit Shane Piggott is closing little by little, 2/10 of that previous lap. So for Gardner, he will be in attacking distance, i.e. he'll be vulnerable to Shane Piggott come the final lap if they proceed at this rate. If not, meanwhile, Lee Holmes still under attack from what is there. In fact, we should say Lee Holmes still trying to attack Ian Manners, who is trying to hold on to that P4 overall. But as they head up towards turn number 4, again, it's going to be a look on the brakes here for Holmes. Can he go for it under braking? He can't quite go for it. He's got a look up there for in front from Adam Delmont. Meanwhile, behind, well, it's going to be the battle between Lee Horn and what is there, Craig Jones, as they head on to the brakes. In fact, Lee Horn loses out there versus Jones. I think a slow run out of Cascades, and as they come through the right-hander of the hairpin, it's now P5 in class for Lee Horn. Dan Skinner's also found his way on through recently, so I think Lee Horn having a poor run out of turn number 1 and also compounded at Cascades, and now losing ever more places as they head into his slots for the 10th time of asking. Matthew Addy still behind with Chris Daines making his way past Matthew Addy, and I think there Addy recognising that Daines is going to be naturally faster, so why hold him at bay? Instead, he can bring him a bit closer to those Pro-Am cars in front, as Jones here under pressure from Horn as they make the way up towards Druids. Now, of course, Horn looking up the inside into turn 10. Jones is going to try to hold it around the outside. It's going to be brave for the two of them to go too wide into the corner. You'll both have to back out here. Keep it clean, boys. And as they make the way through the corner, well, Horn there still on the inside. Meanwhile, Jones fighting back on the outside. It's going to be a run. Jones has got the speed, but Horn's got the authority. And as they break their way into Lodge Bend, well, Jones right now just does not have the run. He tries to cut it back, but Horn plants it perfectly. And I think for Lee Horn, that's P9 on the cards, P4 in the prime class back in his hands. But they've now got Chris Daines and Matthew Addy close behind, and Will Daines is not going to hesitate. He'll pull the trigger on the move as soon as he can as they make the way through turn 1 and down towards Cascades once again. But in the charge, we can see here they stay stationary for a brief moment, or do they? As I think Joe's trying to set up a return move, but we must look from them back to the leaders, starting with Lee Holmes versus Ian Manners, as this is the battle for P4, and Holmes trying to go around the outside, and Manners on the exit of the hairpin. It's going to be a drag race up towards Hislop's Bend, and who's going to be the faster here? I think it is going to be Holmes by a small margin. It's going to be a 10th, if that, as they headed towards the braking zone, but still Manners has got his nose in. No, he decides to back out, and as we look to the leaders, well, Gavin Gardner, he was being reeled in by Shane Piggott, but in fact Piggott now has got Adam Delmont all over the back of him on this penultimate lap as they head up towards Druids Bend, and as they come out through the crest and down into the braking zone, well, Piggott now he's going to have the full force of one of the major championship contenders in the pro class bearing down and breathing on his neck, and that is not a comfortable place, I can tell you, as they make the way out to the double right apex and in towards Lodge. Going on to the brakes here, Piggott just simply defends hard for Ace of Spades Racing. The 27 driver, I think, will feel as though he needs a major result given how much work he's put in today. Indeed, I'd say he's been one of the hardest workers out there in terms of demonstrating pace, and as he comes on through at the King of 12, they go on to the final lap. It's Gardner who leads, Piggott P2, Delmont P3, Holmes P4, and then your prime leader of Manners P5 ahead of Mikey Pollard by 1.8 seconds. But as they come out of turn 1, now all of our drivers will be using those track limits as much as they can if they've got any instant points left to go with them. But as they come on down and through at Cascades, Piggott under major pressure as we jump aboard here with Adam Delmont. Now, where can Delmont go for it? Well, Piggott will defend as hard as he can into the turn 4 hairpin, but Delmont's got to try and get Piggott to make a mistake here under braking. And you see Piggott immediately trying to get away from the inside line, trying to give himself some breathing room off the corner. Garner still 7/10 ahead of the pair, so I think it's going to be a battle for P2 to the finish as they make the way up towards Hislop's. And again, you see Piggott just simply put himself in the middle of the road. Delmont switches to one side. Will he switch to another? No, he does. A bit of contact there to the rear of Piggott's car, but Piggott just boosts his way through the corner. And as they make the way into Knickerbrook, it's now 3/10 as the gap as Delmont squandered his chance as they come out to the right-hander, and up the rides they go before heading to Druid. It's going to be close between the trio, but I think Garner is safe here, and it's a battle for P2 to the finish line now as they come into turn number 10. Through Druids they come, and as they do, will Piggott there just simply keeping the car on the right line. He doesn't need to do anything spectacular, just carry enough speed, and he should be safe. And Delmont's win 1.5 temps as they head down towards the braking zone. Piggott gives the door open, but Delmont's not got enough space to play with it, and as a result, as they come through the final corners, well, here comes Gavin Gardner, and I don't think he's going to quite believe it, but he's going to add his name to the list of winners over in the Pro Class. Gavin Gardner from Next Gen Racing is your winner ahead of Shane Piggott P2, Adam Delmont P3, Lee Holmes P4, and Ian Manners rounds off the top 5 with a prime win there in class. Mikey Pollard P6, Jamie Dory P7, and it will be Dan Skinner P8 to round off the prime podium ahead of Lee Horn at P9, Chris Daines P10, Craig Jones P11 ahead of Matthew Addy, Reece Saunders P13 in a race that wasn't to end the way he wanted it to today. And then Phil McDougall recovers to P14, just holding off Roger Morton to the timing line. And well, there may have been 18 starters, but only 15 finishers in the end, with the retirements of Mark Sykes, Adam McNally and Mark Cadmore. But my goodness, what a race. And well, for this man in particular, as we run out of VHS tape on the replay, Gavin Gardner bringing home a huge score with his first win of the season. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, after our final 12 laps of racing here today at Oulton Park in round 3 of the Next Gen Racing Front Wheel Drive Fridays Clio Cup, as hosted on iRacing, Gavin Gardner taking the win by 1 second in the end for Next Gen Racing over Ace of Spades Racing Shane Piggott. Piggott finally finding his way onto the podium, a well-deserved P2, there's no question about that, and he's just holding off Adam Delmont to the line for Next Gen Racing. The difference between the two of them there being just shy of a 10th. Lee Holmes P4 for 8 Tech Racing, and whilst it didn't quite work out in its entirety, Lee Holmes rebounding particularly at the start of today in qualifying in race number 1, and knowing that his championship campaign is well and truly still alive versus Delmont and Daines. P5 overall for Ian Manners there. Rounded off a win in the Prime class of the DCW Racing and Prime Championship leader going into tonight, and leading by 1.4 seconds over Mikey Pollard, his teammate, with Jamie Dory there P7 ahead of the Next Gen Racing trio, and indeed his teammates of Dan Skinner, Lee Horn and Chris Daines to round off the top 10. Special mention to Dan Skinner, of course, in P8 there for the fact that's third place in the Prime class, and therefore he rounds off the Prime podium of Manners, Pollard and Skinner, and Lee Horn just missed out on the podium there, P9 overall. Chris Daines at P10, of course, not the way he's waited to go today, and I think it has been a little bit of a knock to his championship campaign momentum, but of course it's 1 round out of 8, and he's still got plenty more racing to come. Craig Jones P11 there for result clothing, best of the rest, and round off the top 5 in the Prime class, ahead of Matthew Addy for Next Gen Racing, and Reece Saunders the team year 1, the driver who could have had a lot to achieve in this third race of the day, but it was squandered before he even turned the first lap, given the incident into turn at number 4, but still, I don't think that necessarily is his fault, and he'll be looking back at the one after the race, there's no question about it. Phil McDougall P14, the CXR Project Black driver, having to make a recovery in the final race of the day after the contact with was Ian Manners into turn at number 3 on the open lap, and that may be looked at after the race, with Roger Morton at P15 for result clothing, and your last finisher over the course of the 12 laps. All 15 finishers finished on the lead lap, and then we did have the 3 retirees of Mark Sykes, Adam McNally and Mark Cadmore, and all 3 of them I think will be classified as non-finishers as they did not complete half the race distance. But congratulations to all of our drivers for their performances in race number 3, and of course all of our races for today. And well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all of our racing, but we're not quite done just yet, as we may have some post-round interviews coming up in approximately 10 minutes time. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Well, unfortunately, we have not got any drivers available for post-round interview this evening, but I think we can completely understand given the fact they exhausted all their effort into battling hard at Oulton Park, and I think all preparations are already currently underway for the run into round number 4. So whilst there may not be any post-round interviews today, I think we may be grabbing one or two come the end of the first half of the season when we bring it to you as if it were live next week. But with that, it does mean it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the Next Gen racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking, I love the Renault Clio Cup car and I want to be on the grid for a future round. Well, spaces are still available in the Clio Cup League, and indeed we've got upcoming leagues aplenty as 2023 goes on. Or perhaps you just want to know a little bit more about us in terms of what we do, not just on the virtual motorsporting circuit, but also the real motorsporting circuit, where you can find out all that and more at our official website, and that is nextgenracing.co.uk. And well, as the website pops up on screen for you now, it is the home of clean and fair sim racing for all. And indeed, as we go from strength to strength here at Next Gen Racing, having hosted leagues for over 16 and a half years on PC and console, we're always looking to expand our series and have ever more drivers on the grid, and that could be you today if you do want to be part of our series. But if you don't want to go to our website necessarily, you can of course follow us on social media and keep up to date with all the latest information and broadcast details, and that is by going to our Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/NextGenRacing. And of course, if you are tuning in currently, why not make sure you subscribe to the media platform you're tuning in on, to make sure you stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts and more. But of course, what lays in wait next time, ladies and gentlemen, is a visit for round number 4 at Lime Rock Park. We'll bring the first half of the season to a close, and whilst the racing will occur this coming Friday on the 28th of April, we'll be bringing it to you as if it were live in the post-round broadcast on Wednesday the 3rd of May. We have seen the tempo set over the first 3 rounds. It has been Chris Daines who's been leading up front in the Pro Championship, but his lead has been dented today by his rivals at Oulton Park. And meanwhile, in the Pro-Am class, it is the rise of the DCW racing pair of Ian Manners and Mikey Pollard. And will they continue to run supreme, or will somebody else in the class be able to find a way to hold them at bay? We'll find out all that and more in round number 4. But until then, we have been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain and Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.